Shall we all rise now for the national anthem? Standing, we'll take the second stanza of the national anthem as our opening prayer. O God of creation, direct our noble course, guide our leaders right, help our use the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and live just and truth, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. And we all say, Amen. Please, let's be seated. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with pleasure that I welcome all of you this morning. But first, let me welcome here. He graciously agreed to be our chairman. I don't want to use the word interim. And so, we'd like to welcome here the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekau, SAN. Let me welcome here this morning our keynote speaker, one of the finest lawyers and activists around. Her voice penetrates. Her voice has clarity. Ms. Ayobe is here with us. I welcome you. I'd like to especially welcome here the matriarch of the family, a wonderful mother who's been able to raise a minimum of 4 doctors. Please welcome here Chief Mrs. Christy Momah. Let me welcome here Commodore I.A. Ahmed, representing the Chief of Defense Staff. I welcome you, sir. Thank you very much. I'd like to especially, for keeping this interaction, this engagement, for keeping it going, let me especially appreciate the children of the man. Dr. Amaka, Dr. Nkem, Dr. Tobe, Dr. Emeka, wonderful children who are keeping the memories of their daddy. Let's put our hands together for these amazing children. But let me welcome all of you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A few days ago, Dr. Nkem called me. And his first word to me was, my brother, it is that time again. And I think it's a very good place for me to start this morning. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. That time that we celebrate a soldier, a scholar, a statesman, a gentleman, a good father, and an amazing husband. It is that time again that every year since they kicked off this annual lecture that we interrogate burning national issues that touch our lives one way or the other. This year, The focus will be on the temple of justice. Every country which is on to a brighter, better, and bigger future needs only to listen to the sound of the gavel that it makes to divine whether the footfalls speak of progression or retrogression. Whether the divination in the temple will be felicitous or ominous. We all agree that this temple is designed to administer the Constitution and serve as a threshold of tears for the unjustly treated. Like a former justice of the Supreme Court once said, it is the last hope of the common man. But some questions will arise. Is the temple a fearless habitat or a crumbling temple filled with rats and reptiles? Is the temple still hallowed or desecrated? Are the priests in the temple courageous or famished? This will engage us today as we take a look at the temple of justice. Is it really scarred or is it still sacred? I'd like to welcome all of you this morning, but this is how we kick off. I would like to link up. He's already there live via Zoom. Dr. Amaka Haruna, who will be kicking off by telling us about the Sam Momah Foundation.
Good morning, everyone, and you're all welcome. I believe my brother, Dr. Onkem, is going to say a little bit about the foundation, but I wanted to just express my unfortunate absence at the event, as I do have a work commitment. So please, we're all very welcome today to the event. As usual, it's going to be a great a great place for learning and in memory of our dad. Thank you all for taking our time to come this morning. Thank you very much, and Dr. N, over to you.
My job is to just give us a bit insight about SMALS and the foundation as a whole. Before that, I'd like to just share a little bit with us. My father passed 3 years ago, and for some reason I found it difficult to mourn him in actual sense of mourning him. My father was a very, very deep person. Whilst alive, he was not very, very physically present. He didn't give much to what we term here as the physical things. So I saw his passing as, a cup can be half full or half empty. For him, passing was half full. He had done his bit here, and I think he was content with what he had done and had left at that time. So we're gathered here today not to mourn in any way. We're here to celebrate a great man, a great husband, father, scholar, motivator of many. And as we hear today, you see that he inspired so many people today. So, but my job is not to delve so much into that this morning. It's to tell you about the foundation briefly and maybe about SMALS. SMALS is an acronym for Sam Momah Annual Lecture Series. It's a series, this is the third year in the series. And this year we thought that one of the most germane issues now is our judiciary. As we heard from the MC, there's a searchlight on them right now. So we thought, if Sam Momah was alive, what were the issues he would want to discuss today? And that's why we picked that topic. We have eminent speakers, keynote speaker, who we hope will do justice to the issue today. And we can leave here edified, empowered, with a notion of a better Nigeria coming tomorrow. So, well, the foundation was set up to spur a reading culture in our country. Our father was very, very passionate about books. He loved to read. You know, when his eyesight was bad, he was always still reading. So he was a reading person. And in that regard, we have a library in Abuja here, and we have intention to build reading rooms in diverse universities across the country. Right now, we have one in the University of Nigeria, I think another one in the University of Lagos, and one more coming up in the University of Jos, I believe. So we want to have those spread out across the country. And for those of you here who may know people who are resourceful, we want to commit to those projects we have. So on that note, I want to just welcome you all once again, and I hope you have a good time. I hope you enjoy the discussions, and I hope it empowers you going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nkem Momah. We appreciate you. I'd like to welcome here Mrs. Ifoma Jude Iloma, representing MBRRI. Is here with us. I welcome you. Mrs. Rabi Anwar, representing the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, is also here with us. I welcome you. Thank you very much. Dr. Mrs. Ijoma Unogu, one of the finest public servants in this country. I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much. Commander C.S. Ugwadu, retired, is here with us. Thank you very much, sir. You're welcome. Let me welcome a very special woman indeed. Before it became in vogue to protect the rights of children and those trafficking, she was in the forefront. One of Nigeria's finest lawyers with a heart of gold. Mrs. Carol Ndaguba is also here with us. I welcome you. I'd like to welcome Professor Augustine Odili, Vice Chancellor, Margaret Lawrence University, Delta State, our book reviewer, is here with us. I'd like to welcome you. Thank you. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now that Dr. Nkem has set the ship a sail, let me also say that we'll be launching a book or presenting publicly a book, which is the former biography of the man. Now this one, a general and a gentleman, will also be unveiling the book and reviewing the book. Right now, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Anoli Okoli, representing Chairman, Police Service Commission, Professor Uche Uwaleke. He is Africa's #1 and the first professor of capital market in Nigeria. Professor, I'd like to welcome you. Chief Mrs. Mercy Agbamuche is also here. I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much. Commodore I.A. Ahmed, representing I've already mentioned him. Colonel P.J. Okoli, retired. Ibrahim Hassan, representing the DG MBTI. I just saw him walking now. Dr. Wada, I welcome you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So without much ado, let me quickly welcome our chairman here. He is the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Mr. Yakubu C. Mekau, SAN, will be stepping forward.
It's always a challenge when I have to take the podium, and because certain adjustments would have to be made. And I say that you go to certain places, you flaunt your height as something of an advantage, but I went somewhere and I had to, I was in the canopy and we were all made to stand up. And I discovered that my face, the canopy was shielding me completely. So I had to step out of the canopy for me to be noticed. So sometimes what gives you advantage can actually be a disadvantage to you. And that is what you have just seen now. Some adjustments had to be made, but I'm grateful to God. It's all part of God's extension of justice to us. I said I would begin with a disclaimer. I am not supposed to be the chairman, but I walked in here and I was told that I will play the role of the chairman of this occasion. There is no way I can say no for several reasons. A few of them are the general and the gentleman that we've come to honor today. And again, the subject of this gathering today, the discussion on the Temple of Justice in Nigeria, is this card, or scared, or sacred. I actually add the word scared. It's the temple position today. And let me begin by recognizing our matriarch in the house. We thank you, we celebrate you, we celebrate all the support that you have brought into this family. You've been an anchor and a pillar to the family right when our father was there, and now with the investment in the children. I didn't have to have met you to know that you are a good mother. Hearing about your children and what they have achieved, it could only have been because a good seed was sowed in them. Because you can only replicate after your own kind. So we may not have met you, but because we have seen your product, we have an idea of who you are, and to even talk about bringing forth 4 doctors in the minimum. I mean, even if we do not like you, and by the way, you still carry that beauty that attracted our father, and we have no reason not to appreciate that as we see you today. You must acknowledge the fact that you have invested in this family to come up with a very good product. Now, the subject of justice is a subject that is close to my heart. It's something that I hold dearly. And some might say that it is so because I'm the president of the bar today, or because I am a lawyer. Well, if I tell you a bit of my story, you will understand that I'm a lawyer today only because God has ordained that I will be a lawyer. And perhaps He decided that I would go this route just so that I would have an expression of what He has deposited in me with respect to justice. I was a student of veterinary medicine in 1985 when someone met me on the street, on campus, to say that I've been admitted to read law. I withdrew my admission from veterinary medicine. Now I never applied to read law. I was simply told that I've been admitted to read law. When I checked all the places that I needed to check, I discovered that yes, I was admitted to read law. My name was on the master list. My name was on the faculty list. I went to the academic secretary's office. My name was there. I was told to go to the old assembly hall to pick my admission letter. I went there and I picked my admission letter like I did for veterinary medicine. So without applying to read law, I was admitted to read medicine with my physics, chemistry, biology. And that is why I'm still very comfortable with the Newton's laws of motion, even as we speak. But here am I today, standing before you, not only as a senior advocate of Nigeria, but as the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. I said all of that to put in context the fact that I'm only able to speak on the subject of justice because God has enabled me to have no reason to be in this profession. But for what happened, I still cannot explain. Now, when I talk about the subject of justice, I always make reference to a statement that I found very profound, that was made by Sheikh Usman Danfodio. And I know I'm a Christian, so when I speak about Sheikh Usman Danfodio in gatherings where you find maybe mostly Christians, I mean, I check the faces and I see a little bit of a frown. But the truth of the matter is that I still haven't been able to fathom the depth of that statement. And that statement is relevant to us as a nation. And if only we can spend time to explore the depth of that statement, then perhaps we would begin to walk our way back to the path and the track that will lead us to the sustenance of this nation, because it's all about justice. So he said that a people can exist without religion. People can exist without religion, but they cannot exist without justice. So, for me, the existence of a people and our existence as a nation is intricately connected to our ability to dispense justice. And that is where the roles of members of the bench and the bar, who are described as members or officers in the temple of justice, come into focus. So, for what we do as members of the bar, for what we do as members of the bench, together members of the legal profession, has everything to do with the existence of this country, absent which we will not have a country. That is how important the role of the lawyer is to this nation. And that is how important the role of a judge is to this country. And I said, if you find any element that is threatening the existence of this nation anywhere, all the shades of our experiences across the country that are hitting at the foundation of this nation, it is simply because there is the absence of justice. But then for you to be able to have justice, you need a life and a lifestyle that would guarantee that in everything that you do, you are motivated by the justice of the situation. I had cause in the beginning of this year when the Nigerian Bar Association convened a national dialogue to apologize to the people of this country for what I considered an abdication by the legal profession in our responsibility to the people of this nation. Understanding that it is only when we act effectively and efficiently in the discharge of our responsibilities as ministers in the temple of justice that we are able to keep this country together. And I said, I realized that even for us, members of the bar, we have come to a place today where our reputation is merely built around how much money we have made as members of the legal profession, as opposed to what we have achieved in the process of giving direction to the people of this country and actually working towards the advancement of the cause of our nation. I found that as something that Alexa Sapara Williams, the first Nigerian to be called to the bar in England, said about the role of the legal practitioner. And he said that the legal practitioner lives for the direction of his people and for the advancement of the cause of his nation. And the question is, how many of us, as members of the legal profession, are motivated by these two responsibilities, giving direction to the people and advancing the cause of our nation? And it is only when you live for these two reasons that you are properly functioning as a minister in the temple of justice. So if you are motivated by other factors, if in the consideration of the matters that you do or the briefs that you take, you are only motivated by the money that is given to you, you are motivated by the ethnicity that you belong to, you are motivated by other factors other than these two elements, which necessarily must lead you to the place of justice, which necessarily, if you live for, would have you rise above all these sentiments that have actually destroyed this country or that are helping in rocking the foundation of this country, only then can we be said to have justice in our nation. Is it the insecurity? Is it also the corruption that we find everywhere? It is simply because we are motivated by other factors other than the need to do justice. But here we are talking about the temple of justice. Is it scarred? Or is it still a sacred place where whatever comes out of that temple is held with reverence, is held with respect, so that if the temple of justice makes a pronouncement that this is the way we should go, every one of us will have confidence that yes, that is the right way we should go. Is that the confidence that the people have in that temple of justice today? These are some of the things that will be interrogated. I'm not here as one who is called to talk or to deliver a paper on this subject, but I must say that for us as members of the legal profession, either serving at the bar or on the bench, we must at all times be conscious of the fact that our responsibilities as ministers in the temple of justice have everything to do with the existence of this nation. And the only way we can be effective and efficient is to conduct ourselves professionally and ethically. A lawyer who does not conduct himself ethically and professionally would mislead the people that he's supposed to lead. A judge who does not conduct himself professionally and ethically would also give a decision that does not meet the end of justice. It will serve some other purpose and not the justice of the situation. And as we do that, we are gradually chopping the foundation of the country unknowingly. But that is the sure thing that we are doing. And it will get to a point if we are not careful. If we don't do a rethink, if we don't do a reevaluation of our situation and come back on track, we may not even have a country that we call our own. Because centered in the existence of the country, centered in the existence of every people, is the presence of justice. And so I would say that this is a subject that should preoccupy our minds. It's a subject that we should live talking about. We should breathe it, we should speak it, we should eat it, because it's about our own existence as a nation. Is it the National Assembly? When you are doing your legislations, what are the motivations for the laws that you enact for the people? Is it to meet the justice of the situation? The executive, when you are making proposals for the projects that will be cited in different locations in the country, why are you making those proposals? Is it to meet the demand of the people in that place, or simply for some other reason? This is how justice is so important to our existence. And for those of us that are privileged to be given the responsibility to drive this process as ministers in the temple of justice, I'm careful not to say this, but perhaps let me borrow from the African proverb, where the lion roared in the jungle and made a pronouncement that no matter the economy of the jungle, I will not eat grass. And he quickly added that it is not pride, it is simply who he is. You know, for those of you who are not lawyers, I apologize. But the responsibility of delivering this country, the responsibility for the recovery, for the reformation, and the repositioning of this country belongs to the lawyers. The lawyers must be at the vanguard of this responsibility. Why? Because Nigeria is a product of laws. Nigeria itself, the Constitution is what gives us the basis for our existence. It's a law. Everything, our sitting down here and having this meeting, it's regulated by law. And we are the ones who are privileged to be instructed on that subject. We understand it. We can see injustice walk on its 2 feet and identify it. And we are the ones to provide the remedy where one is found. And so it is for us to take charge. It is for us to be at the vanguard of what we need to do to keep this country together. Of course, I know that there are agitations everywhere. Many people are not satisfied with what comes out of the temple of justice, but I'll leave the discussion to those that have been called to do justice to this topic. I've seen my big sister, who is our keynote speaker today, and I'm sure we are in for a wonderful time. We're going to have an expose of this subject. I hope that I'm able to stay until you are done with your keynote address, because I would be speaking, I'm sure, from the content of what you will deliver today at some other fora, because I believe that this will be a learning experience for me and for others that are called to speak. I thank you again, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, for the honor you have done to be in this meeting today. You couldn't be doing anything more important than this today, I believe, because, like I said, we are coming to have a conversation of how we would continue to exist as a people. Because whatever desires or aspirations we have, if Nigeria as an entity is not in existence, we cannot express those aspirations. We cannot have those desires met. And this, I believe, is the most important subject that all of us should be so mindful of and pay all our attention. You cannot waste your time talking about this subject. So thank you very much. I appreciate the honor of inviting me here, and maybe just to also extend an invitation to all of you. We have a conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, our annual general conference. As the president of the bar, I've been settled with the responsibility of driving that conference. And the theme of this conference is getting it right, charting the course for Nigeria's nation building. We have to get it right. The lawyers have to take the charge, have to take the lead to get it right. And these are some of the things that we'll be discussing at that conference. I invite you to that conference as well. Be part of it. It will be a continuation of what we've come to discuss. We started this conversation in January, where we invited all the presidential candidates to talk about security, to talk about administration of justice and economy. We wanted to make sure that we engaged them at that point, so that whoever became the president, we can now hold him onto account. Now is also an opportunity for us to do that. That is our responsibility as members of the Nigerian Bar Association to the people of this country. We will not shirk that responsibility, but I invite each and every one of you to join us in making sure that we get it right as a nation, because justice is important, and it is about allowing ourselves to be motivated by justice in everything that we do, that we shall get it right. Thank you so very much. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
For once, I come to the podium and I have to bring the microphone down. As tall as I am, 6'2" or 6'3", I had to reduce the microphone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the man's intellect is as tall as he is, passionate about law and passionate about Nigeria. Let's put our hands together one more time for him. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome here AVM Chinda, representing the Chief of Defense Intelligence. I welcome you, AVM Chinda. Thank you very much. Also here, I'd like to welcome Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, former Education Minister, Vice President, World Bank, Africa, represented here by Senior Special Assistant Dr. Jude Akubude. And also here with us is our moderator for the panel discussion, one of the finest brains in law, Associate Professor of Law, Dr. Sam Amadi. I welcome you. They told me some time ago that the qualities of a lawyer are beautiful, and the president of the NBA talked about it. Empathy, integrity, research ability, communication skills, and many more. And then I begin to wonder, why did Professor D. Oshundari write a poem that he titled, "My Lord, Tell Me Where to Keep the Bribe"? I know our keynote speaker is a fantastic lawyer, and I'm very sure she would disagree with this poem. I welcome Ms. Ayobe to deliver her keynote.
It's indeed an honor to be invited to participate as the lecturer at this third Sam Momah lecture series. I was reading up about General Momah, and I discovered that in one of his last interviews, he said that Nigerians he wanted to appeal to fellow Nigerians to put the past behind us. And that if we keep living in the past, we'll never get a future, that Nigeria needs a brighter future, and therefore we ought to forget the past. And I'm afraid that if I'm going to talk about scars, it's not possible for me to forget the past, because we do have to go back into the past to see how we got those scars. Sorry, this. Now, the title of the paper as given to me might suggest that the temple of justice in Nigeria is either scarred or sacred. But I'm mindful of a contribution that I made when I was discussant to a paper delivered by another child of Anambra, Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, when she was asked to talk about the role of the intellectual in public life. And what I said then was that the role of the intellectual is to add nuance, to avoid the either or categorization, the black, white, good, bad extremes, and to recognize that for most of us, most of life takes place in the middle ground. Yes, sometimes we edge closer to the negative, sometimes we move closer to the positive. We've just been through an election in this country in which there has been, to my mind, quite ludicrous presentation in some quarters of the choice as one between good and evil, saint and sinner. Of course, it was nothing of the sort. Whatever mud was thrown from one quarter was matched by mud from other quarters. Is it not ludicrous to pretend that when the you-know-what hit the fan, only one or two garments were stained? With that in mind, it won't come as any surprise when I say that, in my view, the temple of justice in Nigeria is both scarred and sacred. It would be a bit ostrich-like to pretend that there is no scarring, but it would be catastrophic to suggest that we should therefore cease to treat the temple of justice as anything other than sacred. But before dealing with the question of what it means to treat the temple of justice as sacred or view it as scarred, it may be as well to clarify what we mean when we talk about the temple of justice, because it's both a physical place and a structure, and it's an idea, an ideal. I say that because some of us may think that everything about the temple of justice rests on the shoulders of its judges. Now, I don't know about every religion that has sacred buildings, but for Christians, the church is not just the building, the bricks and the mortar. It's the ministers and the congregation, the believers. In the same way, the temple of justice is not only the judges, it's also the lawyers and everybody who enters there. Indeed, it's not for nothing that the members of the bar describe themselves, or ourselves, as the president of the Bar Association just said, as ministers in the temple of justice. That's important because, as we'll see, we all have responsibilities. So what does it mean treating the temple of justice as sacred? Of course, it must mean respect for the rule of law. The 4 rules of law are accountability, open government, just law, and accessible and impartial justice. The rule of law is about the supremacy of law. In particular, it refers to the idea that no individual or organization stands above the law. And it means the government is also subject to the law. Even when we were under a military dictatorship, where the military rulers could make any law that they liked, and those who were in the country at that time may remember the infamous words of the chief judge of Lagos State, Ligali Ayorinde, who said that any pronouncement by the head of the federal military government was as good as law, that Babangida could be sitting in his bathroom. But in practice, ostensibly, there were still laws. In fact, when the military seized power on the 31st of December 1983, they enacted legislation that they hoped would enable them to try those elected during the Second Republic. Fortunately, the relevant decree contained the words, "with effect from the 1st of January 1984, words which Justice Rosaline Omotosho, who was then the Chief Judge of Lagos State, which she held deprived the Buhari Idi dictatorship of the ability to charge any of those whom they had detained for any acts done before the 1st of January 1984. Of course, the decree writers in the Ministry of Justice immediately got busy and amended the decree to backdate it to the 1st of October 1979, when the Second Republic started. But as you can see, there was at least an attempt to enact laws. For sure, by the end of the day, those decree writers had twisted themselves into ever more ridiculous pretzels of legal drafting, as for example, in awarding themselves the right to detain people without trial. The military dictatorship purported to oust the jurisdiction of the courts to question anything, not just that was done, but even that purported to have been done under Decree number 2 of 1984, which was the State Security Detention of Persons Decree. In theory, this was because when everyone was being locked up anyhow, minor petty dictators were signing detention orders that were supposed to have been signed by Major General Tunde Idiagbon. But you could not even base a challenge on the fact that a detention order had been signed by Captain Vindictive somewhere, locking up the girl who refused him a dance at the Christmas barracks party the year before. It purported to have been done under the decree, and that was all there was. So what happens if we fail to accept or understand the basic principle that the temple of justice must be sacred? It means that we agree that arbitrary exercise of power is okay. That we accept the KBAC principle, where the word of whoever it is who's managed to seize power or to climb to the top of the greasy pole, that person's word is law. And if it changed from the way it was exercised yesterday or 2 minutes ago, well, that's just too bad. Keep up. Now, contrary to the do not question the Lord's anointed mindset that is common in this country, the fact that something is sacred does not mean that it cannot be criticized or questioned. One only has to look at the Psalms, 13, 22, 77, and 142, etc., to see that David did complain and question his God. So it's important to emphasize that our hope for a sacred temple of justice is not and should not be a bar to criticism. Since our temple is man-made or manned by fallible human beings like ourselves, it's only through criticism and questioning that we can drive improvement and draw a bit nearer to perfection. Indeed, the very fact that we have a system of appeals embodies the recognition of that human fallibility and capacity for making mistakes. The issue, however, is whether the questioning and criticism to which the Temple of Justice has been subjected in our present times, in our current system of civilian rule under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has moved away from the goal of criticism that may leave scars in the drive to achieve improvement and towards the goal of simply inflicting scars. Indeed, with the ultimate goal of bringing down the temple, as that deprives the temple of its sacred character let's look at the kind of scarring that we've been seeing. There is, of course, the scarring that judges themselves have done in the temple of justice in Nigeria. Yes, of course, there's scarring that's done by others, lawyers, the media, the public at large. But however little direct evidence there may be, at least that an ordinary jobbing lawyer like me would be aware of, it would be naive to think that no judges have contributed to the scarring. Indeed, there have been examples, a few examples, of judges actually being convicted for judicial corruption. Those judges, however, do not include any of the judges who were victims of the so-called sting operation carried out by the Department of State Services starting on the night of Friday, the 7th of October, 2016. The report of that event in the Punch newspaper of 9th October 2016 would have been darkly comic if it hadn't been a tragic statement about the anyhowness that attended the whole episode. And I'm going to quote from the Punch report. Quote, a security guard and stewards who witnessed the operation at Dimba's place confirmed the incident to our correspondent. They said that the DSS operatives had no cause to apply force, as the judge had let them in without any resistance. Sources said that Justice Dimba complained after the departure of the DSS operatives that they, the security operative agents, left with a bag containing the draft of judgments which the judge was meant to deliver next Tuesday. The judge got to know of the presence of the DSS operatives at about 8 p.m. on Friday after he was alerted by his security guards. About 20 of them surrounded this house and that of Justice Ademola. About an hour later, they sought to enter the house and they were let in. On getting in, the judge asked for their search warrant, and they promptly produced one, which bore Justice John Nyang's name. The judge made them to realize that he wasn't Justice Nyang. And they produced another one, bearing Justice Ademola's name. Justice Dimba again said that he's not Justice Ademola. They promptly apologized that there was a mix-up where they had instructions to search his place. They went ahead to search the place for about 30 minutes and they said went away with the bag containing his judgments. I dare say that the expected chairman of this occasion could testify to the same anyhowness that was evident in the October 21 invasion of her own private residence. Because again, the DSS came, wrong address, it's just that makes you a bit worried about the security of the nation. Now, Ni Oshundare's poem, My Lord, Tell Me Where You Keep Your Bride, published a few days after the DSS raids, was a satirical reaction to discoveries thrown up by those raids. And those discoveries were described in the media as, quote, evidence-based reports of illicit keeping of huge amounts of ill-gotten money in hard and local currencies, in rooftops, and other ridiculous non-banking places. The opening stanzas of the poem are excoriating. My lord, please tell me where to keep your bride. Do I drop it in your venerable chambers, or carry the heavy booty to your immaculate mansion? Shall I bury it in the capacious water tank in your well-laundered backyard? Or will it breathe better in the septic tank, since money can deodorize the smelliest crime? I won't go on, but you get the idea. And despite the failure to secure convictions after that October night of the long knives, the miasma of suspicion remains and hangs over the head of every judicial officer, tainting them all, the good and the bad. Yet to my mind, it is deeply unhealthy for us to approach the issue of judicial integrity as though it cannot be found, as though what was alleged, but ultimately not proven, against less than a dozen judges is what is true of all. Whenever these issues arise, I recall one memorable day when I, just an ordinary non-silk legal practitioner, had a plethora of matters one day. One was a trial at the Federal High Court, one was a judgment, another was a ruling, and then we got a hearing notice for a judgment at the Court of Appeal in a matter that had not yet been argued. So I deployed my two juniors and went off to do the trial myself. I came back from the trial, which didn't go on, surprise, surprise, to find that my juniors were back with three decisions in my favor. The High Court judgment and the ruling, which disposed of the entire case, went in our favor, and so did the matter at the Court of Appeal. It turned out that I had not been served with the hearing notice for the argument of the appeal, but on the day in question, the Court of Appeal treated the appeal as having been argued on the basis of the brief of argument that I had filed. And on that, without hearing my spellbinding oral address, they had determined the appeal in favor of my client. These things happen. That's what's normal. You don't have to see judges. You don't have to know them. I was reminded of the remark made to former Justice Charles E. Archibald, which he related in his memoir, A Stranger in Their Midst, and I'm quoting him. I was warned of the unfortunate phenomenon of the corrupt always suspecting corruption in others by Honorable Justice Philip Namaika Agu. A further handicap is the susceptibility of even people of integrity to the notion of other people's avarice. They just love feeling and being regarded as ethically superior. Then, of course, there is the, quote, do not what I do, but what I say crowd. There's no honor or association among thieves where they are separated by hierarchy or status, unless, of course, by happenstance, they are sipping from the same bowl. It said, despite the brouhaha that attended the sting operation, none of those arrested or trashed in the news media for allegedly having large sums of money in strange places was eventually convicted, or if there was any conviction, it was quashed on appeal. And yet even I have heard credible reports that speak of judicial corruption, nor, as might be thought, have I heard such tales only from members of the inner bar. I'm reminded of a former junior of mine who was having a really difficult time in a case. And at last there was a chink of light and there was a ruling in his favor, not dispositive of the whole matter, but he wanted to get a copy of that order and kept on going and they wouldn't give him his certified true copy. And eventually the registrar said, why don't you see the judge and, go in and ask him. So he went in and saw the judge. And the judge said, Mr. Sancho signed the order and gave it to him. And so this young man said, oh, my lord, thank you very much. Now, this young man, he comes from the eastern part of the country, and the judge was a judge of the Lagos High Court. And so he looked at him and said, is that how they say thank you in your part of the country? 2 years at the bar, this young man, he said, luckily it was Christmas. So he was able to put together a hamper and deliver it to the judge. And he agonized with an envelope of 2,000 naira, which in those days was quite a lot of money. Took it, and then the registrar said, oh no, the judge is out, but you can leave it. And he said, well, there was something. He said, no, we know all about it, you can leave it. So he left the envelope with his 2,000 naira. And when he said that after that, for some time in that case, it was like going into the sunlit uplands. The judge was so kind to him. So it's not that we don't hear about these things. But the anecdote reminds me that in the context of the contribution of judges to scarring the temple of justice, I should again refer to former Justice Archibald, who, when he was posted to the Federal High Court at Enugu, he expressed surprise, and I'm quoting him, that holdovers from my Enugu campus days were not about to become sociable, not even some pretty close former pals. They kept their distance. Well, my immediate reaction on reading that was, but that's how it should be. Or rather, that was how it used to be. To accept the role of a high court judge used to mean something of a severance from one's former life. I spent 12 years in the chambers of G.O.K. Ajayi and Company, and in all that time, I saw only one high court judge visit him in the chambers as a friend. That's not the situation now. And the creation of the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria has not improved matters. Rather, it's as though to take silk is to be admitted to an inner circle of persons with whom high court judges or justices of the Court of Appeal or Supreme Court can mix freely. Indeed, it's even a question whether one can attain the rank without mixing with judges. In the days when I used to apply for silk, a law school classmate of mine who had taken silk advised that I should just pop in and see one or two of the justices of the Supreme Court whenever I had a matter in Abuja. I should pop in and ask if there was anything that I could carry to Lagos for the Supreme Court justice or some similar pretext. Nah, I didn't do that. That's not the only reason why you don't see me with SAN after my name, but I felt that it could be okay for him as a gentleman in trousers of the bar, but would not be a good idea for me. Many on the bench today do not seem to feel the need to separate themselves from the rest of the world. Indeed, just last week, the People's Democratic Party had cause to criticize the newly elected governor of Benue State, who's a Reverend Father, for traveling to Plateau State to attend the one-year remembrance mass in order of the son of the president of the Court of Appeal, Honorable Justice Monica Bolnan Dongban Mensem. The PDP said that it viewed the frolicking of the governor around the Court of Appeal president, and I quote, with deep suspicion for the fact that the governor is having his election challenged before the Benue State Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal sitting in Makurdi. And of course, they went on to say that it's just the president of the Court of Appeal who nominates the judges for the panels. PDP was good enough to say that, quote, the party has no reason to doubt the integrity of the president and those judges. But it went on to say that same cannot be said of the Benue State governor, and they warned him against any act that may seek to tamper with the course of justice at the Election Petition Tribunal. It's unfair, but that's what happens when judges and lawyers mix. Now, there's no doubt that the sting operation was deeply damaging to the judiciary and inflicted deep scars on the Temple of Justice. Although, as I said, all the judges who were eventually charged in the wake of the operation were cleared by the courts. We nonetheless had the embarrassing spectacle of senior lawyers coming forward to explain that huge sums given to some of those accused have been given as personal gifts on the occasion of high society weddings or other such expenses. But as I said, in the end, the government, whether by the DSS or by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, was unable to prove any of the charges that it had levied against the judges. Rather, the countercharge that the Buhari administration, its security services, and its Attorney General of the Federation were going after the judges because they had given judgments against the government. That stuck. Here was a case of the executive branch of government inflicting scars on the judiciary. A lasting scar that followed on the heels of the sting operation came with the equally scarring saga of the removal of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onogen. Onogen, it will be recalled, had become the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria upon the retirement of his predecessor in office, but President Buhari had refused to confirm him. As the matter was being stretched past breaking point, it was Vice President Yemi Osinbajo who, as acting president, confirmed Onogen as substantive Chief Justice when the president had traveled abroad for medical treatment. However, for whatever reason, the appointment did not sit well with the president or his inner circle, what these days we are obliged to describe as his cabal. And the nation was treated to the sorry spectacle of what one might call a spungo, special purpose NGO, if not an actual gongo, government-owned NGO. It's called the Anti-Corruption and Research-Based Data Initiative, which filed a petition with the Code of Conduct Bureau accusing the CJM of, quote, managing several accounts through which he has been making transfers of local and foreign currencies in a manner inconsistent with financial accuracy. Hauled before the Code of Conduct Tribunal at what, compared to some other cases, seemed like the speed of light, on the 18th of April 2019, the suspended Chief Justice was convicted on 6 counts of non-declaration of assets in respect of 5 accounts between 2009 and 2015, despite subsisting orders from both the National Industrial Court of Nigeria and the Federal High Court that the prosecution at the CCT should be stopped. The Code of Conduct Tribunal ordered his removal from office, barred him from holding public office for 10 years, and ordered the forfeiture of the undeclared assets. Meanwhile, following a recommendation by the National Judicial Council that Onogen should be compulsorily retired, he had already resigned on the 5th of April. As I said, Those scars were inflicted on the temple of justice by the executive arm of government. And I don't need to go into the long list of orders that the executive chooses not to obey. We just saw an example yesterday, which also inflicts scars on the temple of justice. But there are others who are also doing their very best to scar the temple of justice. I've already mentioned the belief that it's somehow all right for members of the inner bar to mix and socialize with justice. And during the period following the Night of the Long Knives and the raiding of judges' residences, we were treated to unsavory tales about the way that such friendships or intimacy are exploited by some senior lawyers. For example, the SAN, whose juniors would file cases with instructions about the judge to whom such cases should be assigned. More recently, we had the saga of the letter written by counsel in the chambers of the then chairman of the body of benches, Wale Olanipekun SAN, in which it was claimed that cases handled by that chambers received favorable treatment, and that the litigants should therefore terminate their instructions to their existing counsel and bring it over to Chief Olanipekun. In the end, the person who wrote the letter took the rap and declared her resignation from legal practice. Those involved know the actuality of the matter, but there's no doubt that the whole incident inflicted scars on the temple of justice. So much for the lawyers, the actual practicing legal practitioners. But what about the rest of those who have business in the temple of justice? Let me digress a little. Most, but not all Fridays, I do a short interview with Silverbird Television's News Hub program, in which I give my take on some issue in the news. Week before last, the producer of the program asked whether I would want to discuss the issue of justice delivery and the road to judicial independence. I declined, partly because I'm not always fond of giving an unresearched take on legal matters, no matter how many times they introduce me as, quote, a legal luminary. I'm just an ordinary jobbing lawyer. And partly because I didn't want to preempt anything I might want to say in this lecture. But why I mention it now is because the background to the suggestion that I might want to discuss the matter was a telephone call allegedly made by the Chief Justice of Nigeria to the president. The allegation was that the specific topic of their discussion was the presidential election petitions and the alleged resignation from the judiciary of Justice Bolu Ugo. Sorry about the mispronunciation of his name, who was a member of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. In a tweet posted by one tweeter, it was alleged that, quote, the judge had written a letter of resignation in which he complained of facing demands to kneecap democracy and being asked to, quote, cripple the independence of the judiciary by ruling in favor of, quote, a certain political candidate believed to be President Bola Tinubu. Went on, Justice Ugo's resignation has caused a serious uproar and a setback to the activities of the Presidential Election Petition Court. That's what this tweeter, Umar Sani, claimed. Incidentally, the claim that the CJN had spoken to the president about the election petitions was also alleged in a tweet by another tweeter. Over the weekend, one tweeter who had previously been arrested under the Cyber Crimes Act for stalking tweeted this, and I'm quoting, aside from the CJN being notorious for corruption, the likelihood of biased judgment influenced by ethnic sentiment is enough reason to squash the idea of having a president whose shaky mandate is being debated in court and a CJN from the same region. Of course, he deleted the defamatory tweet, but not before it had generated 390 likes and over 200 retweets. These tweets are just the latest in a campaign to denigrate the judiciary that started even before our general elections. And after the results, in which Bola Tinubu was declared the winner, a popular quote that was being circulated by a lot of people who ought to have known better asserted that, quote, whenever a thief encourages you to go to court, just know that his elder brother is the judge. We had the saga of the Chief Justice of Nigeria being photographed in a wheelchair at a foreign airport, on the strength of which, on the 23rd of March this year, an online medium, the People's Gazette, alleged that he had, quote, been sighted in London pretending to be a physically challenged old man in what Supreme Court sources said was a clandestine preparation for a meeting with President-elect Bola Tinubu. No wonder that in suit number SCCV 501 of 2023, in which the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal of the People's Democratic Party against the decision of the Court of Appeal, which had in its turn dismissed its appeal over the alleged double nomination of the vice presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Justice John Inyang Okoro, JSC, concluded his concurring judgment as followed. From all I have endeavored to say above, it is seen that this appeal is one of the frivolous appeals that this court has been inundated with in recent times. And in this type of appeal, the promoters resort to social media to set booby traps for the court in order to blackmail it. This is quite unfortunate, and I can only advise the perpetrators of such to desist from such activities. The lead judgment had castigated the case as, quote, a waste of precious judicial time and energy that could have been better expended elsewhere, from the trial court up to the Supreme Court. Now, I'm a lover of word puzzles, so it won't surprise you to learn that just like the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, I found another word to make out of the letters that feature in the words that provide the title of this lecture, scarred and sacred. The word, of course, is scared. At the presentation of Charles Archibald's book on the 15th of February this year, former governor of Cross River State, Donald Duke, asserted that the Supreme Court justices who had delivered the judgment in the Imo State gubernatorial appeal had been denied visas to enter the United States of America for a judges' conference. No doubt he has inside information about the dealings of the United States consular section. Yet in my view, the judgment of the Supreme Court in that case is unimpeachable. And just as we have lawyers to the petitioners at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal coming out of the court to give news conferences that are almost at 180 degrees to what has just happened before the tribunal, perceptions about that case, the Imo gubernatorial case, are informed by a resolute refusal to look at the case that was presented to the election tribunal by the petitioner and by the respondents, and instead a preference for what, quote, everyone knows, and constant references to, quote, Supreme Court governor, quote, and man who came forth. So if the US truly decided to withhold a visa from a justice of the Supreme Court because of a decision that they gave in the exercise of their judicial mandate on the basis of the case presented before them, and chose instead to swallow the line that the only reason for that decision was because the judges had perverted the course of justice, that would be their problem. But I ask myself, do I want the chief ministers in the Temple of Justice in Nigeria to give a decision that they know has no basis in law or the evidence presented to them merely because they are scared of not getting a US visa? God forbid. I no more want that than I want them scared because some with face or without faces, people on Twitter or other social media think that they can be frightened. As I said, God forbid.
God forbid that I will not ask for another round of applause. Wonderful, wonderful. She took everything, even from the social media, and concretized them. Thank you very much. We'll probably have, before the panel discussion, and I'm very sure members of the panel are changing their thoughts from what they had when they left their houses. I was looking at the moderator while the keynote speaker was speaking, taking some notes. So we'll have two people that will give their thoughts on the paper, and then we'll constitute the panel. Let me first and foremost recognize the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Mr. Victor Moraga, Esquire, who is here with us. I'd like to welcome you. Thank you very much. Also here, Honorable Comrade Mustafa Dabiri is also here with us. I'd like to welcome you. You'll be airing your thoughts after the MBA president. Honorable. Yeah? Thank you. And so without much ado, let me invite the MBA president, Mr. Yakub Menka, SAN, for his thoughts on the paper.
God forbid that I don't say something before to actually appreciate my big sister for this keynote address. I said it before she came up to speak, and she has just done justice to the subject. And in a long while, I haven't listened to a keynote address that has dealt with the subject, the topic of discussion, in such a manner that it provokes the conversation that should go on in and sets the tone for the conversation at that meeting and even beyond. I was therefore prophetic when I said that the conversation here would even dovetail into what we are going to do at the annual general conference. The instances that were given about those issues that have actually cost what we describe as scars on the temple of justice. And then the questions of perception of what obtains in the judiciary, the perception that the public has about the judiciary. Is it true? Are we as lawyers actually feeding the public with the right kind of information to properly inform their perception and their belief about the judiciary? Is that an aspect of the abdication that I talked about earlier, where we have missed it in giving direction to the people? And you know, I come from, my parents never went to school. Never went to school. Both of them were uneducated, never went to school. And I only went to school simply because my father dared to join the army. Okay? So I go back to that village today. And by the way, I set up a school because of all my cousins, paternal cousins. It was only my elder sister, late sister, and myself that were privileged to have a Western education. So I have several cousins on my father's side. And my mom only had a younger brother. And so just those ones, they were also in school because her younger brother came to live with them. And so he also joined the army. Now, we have a school there, and we can only help educate them if we feed them with the right information. And that will shape their conduct. So I go to that village today. When I was a barrister, they described me a barrister. They gave birth to a young boy, and they named him Barrister. So I went to the village one time, and I had the mother, or someone, yes, the mother was shouting and telling one other lady, I didn't understand what was happening at the time, that, go and get Barrister. Come on, his father has come. They actually named him Barrister. They call him Barrister today in the village. And then when I became son, in 2019, February, I went home. Another young boy was also named Sam. Now, why did I say this? It simply illustrates and demonstrates the influence that we have on our people. They don't understand what the courts are. They know you as barrister and as son in the village. Whatever you tell them is what they believe. Whatever you feed them with is what informs their actions. And that is why we must be circumspect. We must be measured in the way we talk about this temple of justice. Yes, an attempt was made to give us even the statistics of those that have been found culpable on allegations of judicial corruption, of maybe about just maybe less than 1%, far less than 1% of the judges that we have in this country have either had these allegations against them or have been convicted. And the only way that you can come to that conclusion is pass through this same civil process of resolving disputes. Otherwise, the risk that we are running is that we are still rocking on the foundation of the country. Like I said, absent the judiciary in this country, we will not have a nation today, bad as the perception may be. And unless we get measured in the way we speak, and I thank you for raising the issue of our senior lawyers coming out of court and arguing their case again, different from what they presented before the judges. Judges don't go to the field. It is what you present to them. And because of the way we have shaped the mind of Nigerians, it is very easy for me to take a defective process to court, lose the case on the basis of the things that I haven't done, and come out, and it's convenient for me to tell my client, well, what do you expect? You know, I told you that these judges may have been sane, and you probably need to do something about it. And that is because we are never interrogated about our professionalism in the way we handle our matters. Clients that hire us don't get to sue us for professional negligence. And so our works are not brought under scrutiny. It's very convenient for us to do so. And I thank you, most of those matters that you even mentioned, if you would take time to go and read the processes that were presented to the court. We, the lawyers, are the ones that even give the basis. If we should do our works the way we should do, then it becomes impossible for judges to be having conflicting decisions. You know why there are conflicting decisions in the courts? Is because we lawyers make conflicting submissions before the judges on the same set of facts, driven by those wrong motivations. And so it's important for us, both our colleagues that are in the media, I just finished, before you finished your keynote address, someone was querying my statement about what happened in Lagos. And I said to him, my brother, we've talked about the order of this court. Have you seen the order? I'm a lawyer. Other than the fact that it was reported on channels that someone was given bail, that is no proof to me that he's been given bail. If I go to court today and I need to prove that someone was given bail yesterday, there is something I need to present. The public does not know. We know. We educate the public. Once we see the order, we can't talk about it. We can't be talking about something we haven't seen. It has been our experience. You find our colleagues on television talking about the judgments they haven't read, misinforming the public. Some of them, and I dare to say with due respect, because these are issues that we are dealing with, they simply go there to tout, because once they give a certain opinion, they attract the attention of a prospective client. That is how they get their briefs. That is not consistent with our responsibilities as those who are supposed to give direction to the people and advance the cause of this nation. And like I would say, and I would continue to say, because the people can exist without religion, but they can't exist without justice. We must look for life. There is a life and a lifestyle that is motivated by justice, and that is the way that we can fix this country. So, whether scared, whether scarred, or sacred, the temple of justice is not something that we can discard. We need the justice of this, the temple of justice for us to exist and for us to realize the growth that we all clearly need as a nation. I thank you again for that keynote address. God bless you. And I know that our discussants will also do a wonderful expose of what has the tone that has been set. And I would also beg at this point, if it's okay, so you don't look around. It's difficult for me to leave this room and not be noticed. So please pardon me. I would ask for your permission to allow me to leave to go attend to other matters that I need to deal with this morning. Thank you so very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association. Let me quickly welcome here. You know, for military people, you respond to emergency very quickly. AVM Chinda is here representing the Chief of Defense Intelligence. Just tell them a few minutes. I'm sure he'll eat up this in 2 minutes. I welcome you.
Okay. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, gentlemen, I'm really sorry I have to interrupt it like this. I was here and I got an urgent call. It's actually a national emergency. I need to be there. I want to plead and say that I'm here at the instance of the Chief of Defense Intelligence himself, who is also on another national assignment outside the country. And he has please asked me to come here personally and deliver his speech for you. Please, it won't be long, it's just short. And it says, dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on my behalf, that is the Chief of Defense Intelligence, Major General Emmanuel Akumaye Parker Odiende, who is busy and on national assignment, it is with great pleasure that I stand before you today as a special guest and book presenter at the third Momah lecture series. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers for extending this prestigious invitation to me. First and foremost, let us take a moment to remember and pay tribute to the late Major General Sam Momah, retired, who actually mentored a good number of us who were very young, very, very young, and in the academy, a good number of times when we used to reminisce on their legacies in the military. And truly, it has helped us a lot to get to where we are today. He was a remarkable individual who dedicated his life to serving the Nigerian Army and our beloved nation in various capacities, and he distinguished himself indeed. His contributions as a commander, Tradoc Nigerian Army, and Chief of Administration Nigerian Army, and as the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology between 1995 and 1999, left an indelible mark in our dear nation, Nigeria. The Momah annual lecture series has become a beacon of intellectual discourse, providing a platform for conversations on critical issues of security, governance, and human rights. It is a testament to the legacy of Major General Sam Momah and his unwavering commitment to the progress and development of our dear nation. This year's theme, the Temple of Justice, scared or sacred, invites us to reflect upon the state of justice in our society. It prompts us to ponder whether our judicial system, the cornerstone of any thriving democracy, is scared by inequalities, injustices, or remains sacred as a symbol of fairness and equity. Such reflections are crucial as we strive to strengthen the foundations of justice and ensure that all citizens are treated with dignity and respect. This resonates with one of the drivers of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is centered on respect for the rule of law and ensuring fairness for all. As part of this distinguished gathering, I am privileged to present a book titled A General and a Gentleman, which is a tribute to the late General Momah. This book chronicles his remarkable life and achievements, serving as a testament to the leadership, integrity, and unwavering dedication to the principles of honor and duty. It is my hope that this book will not only serve as a source of inspiration, but also contribute to preserving the memory and legacy of this great man we are here to honor today. Furthermore, I am pleased to announce that the Chief of Defense Intelligence, on behalf of the Defense Intelligence Agency, is committed to supporting the late General Momah's legacy through a donation which will be communicated to the organizers in private. I've also personally discussed that with one of the organizers. In addition, I also encourage each and every one of us here to consider obtaining a copy, A General and a Gentleman, for your personal library. The book will indeed serve as a valuable resource, allowing us to delve into the extraordinary life of a remarkable leader and gain insight into the values and principles that guided him all through his lifetime. I shall be purchasing 10 copies for the agency's library. Once again, I extend my deepest gratitude to the organizers of the third Momah Annual Lecture Series for this incredible opportunity to honor a man who has left an indelible impact on our nation. Let us use this occasion to engage in meaningful discussion, foster new ideas, and work collectively towards building a just and prosperous society. Once again, I thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity. We are really happy to be associated with this forum, and I assure you that the agency will always work with you anytime, any day. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
I admire military men. There's a national emergency. Well, he's very calm here delivering his paper. Let's put our hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, let me welcome here Honorable Comrade Mustafa Dabiri. But before he steps here, I'd like to welcome the former Honorable Minister for Health, Professor ABC Nwosu, who stepped in here earlier. Prof, we appreciate you. We thank you for service to nation. Thank you very much. So Honorable Comrade Mustafa Dabiri will be stepping forward now. Only the president of the MBA can do that. Thank you very much.
God forbid I didn't come on time. Sorry, though it's an impromptu, but I appreciate the honor of giving me the privilege to be here today in front of amiable guests and the president of the Law Association. Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to just have a little view on what my sister said earlier. which are really
please, I would like those who are seated in front with the NBA president and honorable here to please step forward here with the matriarch of the family for a group photograph before the president of the NBA leaves us. Prof, okay, then let's do it downstairs here. Yeah, let's do it downstairs because of our father, the prof. Are you guys happy? Photographers? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Honorable Mustafa. All right.
standing on the formation of equity, justice, and fairness in our country. I will be coming from the political view as a politician and a grassroots one. I think the boss lies on my shoulder as a politician, being in this midst today. And I can assure you that from my own perspective and my colleagues, we will stand for what is right in our country, to be fair, to be just, and things will go right. Having said that, let me give the honor to whom honor is due, the reason why we are here. General Momah of blessed memory. I come through with the family, my friend, my brother, Dr. John Momah, and also to say that Nigeria has lost a gem. And I believe that in every one of us right here today, we can also take the momentum of leadership qualitatively to stand in for each other to build a great nation as one Nigerians. It's totally a shame of what happened yesterday with the former CBN governor. I watched it on the TV yesterday, and as a politician, as someone in the system, I felt so bad and shed tears that this is not right in our country. Things must be done the right way. If there's a bill, we should stand by the honor of the justice of the High Court, and that should stand. The DSS has no personal executive power than the judiciary. Whatever has been said in the court of law in Nigeria should stand, and we should all respect that. And politicians should know, starting from myself, there's life after governance. You go back to your base. What are you going to tell your people? What have you done when you were there? How did you prove to Nigerians that you are one of the few that will stand in for one another in what Nigeria really stands for? After all the perseverance of the office, you become who you are. The name will still remain Mr. Dabiri. Quote and in quote, the honorable, the comrade, the warrior, is just a honor which you all have given to us. And that's if we stand in there for the great honor, why you call us those names. Are we truly honorable? In our dealings, are we truly honorable? In our activities, are we truly honorable? So we must stand in for what is just, like I said earlier. I'm not going to take much of your time. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Thank you very much. In 2013, Honorable Mustafa Dabiri represented Nigeria at the United Nations Africa Summit. He is an entrepreneur and he was the NMPP senatorial district candidate for Lagos West. So he bestrides both the business world and politics. So he has two addresses. No wonder he doesn't care. If politics fails, he goes back to business. Let's put our hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. So very quickly, we are now moving to the panel discussion. Let me welcome our moderator. He's an associate professor of law. At a point, he was giving Nigeria electricity. He's bringing power and electricity to the podium. As I welcome Dr. Sam Amadi. These are members of the panel. I'd like to welcome our keynote speaker. They conscripted you behind your back. I hope you don't mind. Welcome here, Mr. Yobe. Thank you. Let me welcome here. He's a very eminent son of the country, Africa's first professor of capital market. But we are actually talking about the Temple of Justice. I don't know if they will sell shares in the temple. Professor Uche Waleke, I welcome him. And then let me welcome Mrs. Rabi Anwar, representing the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission. Finally, for this panel, I'd like to welcome here the Chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, a lawyer himself, Victor Oracle.
Let me start with Prof. Okay, I want to. You are a professor of finance, and you have a budget to advise business entrepreneurs. I'll give this one. Entrepreneurs who might want to come to Nigeria and invest. You also have been a commissioner in the state, and so you understand a bit of politics, even if you're not a politician. I would like to find out from you. You heard our keynote speaker talk about scarred Temple of Justice.
The judgments that come from the Supreme Court, in my view, should not be seen to be, controversial. And that also sends a lot of signals, a lot of messages, to the investing community. There is no doubt that the judiciary has a very critical role to play in the development of our economy. As a matter of fact, studies have shown that economies that have progressed are economies where rule of law, has been held very sacrosanct. There's a very strong correlation between rule of law, observance of rule of law, and economic development. There's no doubt about that. Now, if you look at the ease of doing business, the pillars of ease of doing business, whether it is registering a business, whether it is starting a business, registering property, resolving insolvency, dealing with construction permits, all those involve legal issues. And part of why Nigeria is not ranked very high also has to do with the these pillars with respect to ease of doing business. As the last ranking of Nigeria places us 131 out of 190 countries, although an improvement, but of course we need to do more. So the judiciary has a lot of role to play in making this our business environment a lot friendly, because what the rule of law does is to protect the investors, is to protect businessmen from unfair treatment, from even corruption. Okay, and that is why it's important, and that's also why the institutions that we have in Nigeria today that promote investment, talking about the Investment and Securities Tribunal, talking about the tax tribunal. These institutions, need to be strengthened. So it's a no-brainer that the judiciary has to be, independent in order to function, properly. So the judiciary, in sum, has a lot of role to play when it comes to, building our economy. Look at the recent case we had, even during the currency redesign. You recall the economy was almost on a cliff, and what saved the day was the judiciary. It was that pronouncement by the Supreme Court extending the
the period for the implementation of the currency redesign, 31st December, that actually saved the day. So the judiciary remains pivotal, in our economic development. Thank you.
I must say first that I'm honored to be on this side of the table. I'm also intimidated by the depth and scope of the presentation by the key speaker, Ismail Leonard Senior, Madam Ayo Obe Esquire. I'm coming from the National Human Rights Commission. What we do as a commission is the promotion, protection, and enforcement of rights. So for me, the question is apt, and as the keynote presenter said, justice is or judiciary. I totally agree with her. It is also both sacred as well as sacred. It's sacred in my own point of view, because there is still, when you see people instituting actions in court, it means there is a level of confidence in the judiciary. Otherwise, nobody will bother. And when you see people reporting to the police or to bodies like the Human Rights Mission, which have a quasi-judicial mandate, that is also hope in the system, that at least we have access to these bodies, we have equality, the chance to also access these bodies, which is very key and important for me. But when there is no access and the window and the door is closed, there's particularly nothing you can do. But people have these bodies and they're approachable, and you seek redress or justice within this system. And I say, as a woman and as a mother, there are challenges even within the so-called developed countries. We are marginalized. Women are seen as being inferior to men. That we cannot take away. It's a fact. And this is Africa. That is the reality. But things are being done. Bodies are being built. And it's about building strong organizations, not where these organizations are supported, are being meant to work the way they are supposed to be, and where we have compliance, a level of compliance and effective mechanism for addressing or implementation of decisions are being taken. I think it's a step in the right direction. But Nigeria is not yet there, but we get there. So we are not isolated in the challenges and the problems being faced all over the world.
We're not there, we'll get there. And again, it's good to talk about institutions, and that's where I'll flip to the chairman of the Federal Fiscal Responsibility Commission. We forget that the rule of law, in fact, has more of administrative law component, whether it's human rights, whether I'm talking about respecting the boundaries between executive and legislature. And oftentimes, the executive, because of power, the judiciary is powerless. Perhaps they don't have the power to police their territory or protect their laws. Legislature has the power to make laws, but they don't have the power of coercion. So the power of coercion of the state is in one branch. So there should be due deference. That branch should be the one, constrain themselves so that they don't violate the other branch. Now, let me ask this question. We've seen borrowings from governments that sometimes don't follow through the Fiscal Responsibility Act nor the DMO Act. And that fits into executive recklessness and affects justice. So my question to you will be broad, but focusing on your expertise. What's your experience of this kind of executive recklessness in terms of deliberate avoidance or violation of actual laws, either restraining them from doing something, either asking them to go through a process to get something done? What is your experience of, and what do you think can be done to keep the executive in check without damaging their executive power, which is critical for development.
Thank you, moderator. First, I would like to thank the organizers of this program, Momah Foundation, for always giving us the opportunity for this national discourse. I must commend the president of the Nigerian Bar, who did a very beautiful speech. The guest speaker also touched on key issues, which to me will help us indeed to understand some of the challenges of the judiciary, because our society have come to the stage that everybody now decides what he thinks is right or wrong, even when the courts, even when the judiciary have the powers. She highlighted, like the case of Imo State governorship election, a plaintiff will get what he pushes through, and the defendant will also get what his counsels were able to. But our society have so degenerated that I will sit back in my bedroom, I will decide when judges' rulings are wrong or when they are right, so long as it does not favor us. My appeal is that as a society, we should begin to respect the judiciary and accord them that privilege, because they are like next to God. Much I've seen some of their fallibility, but the only alternative is that we'll go to the Hobbesian theory, where everybody will do whatever he wants. Coming to the issue, the administrative aspect of laws, I would also say that from the Fiscal Responsibility perspective, particularly Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, the laws are there with about 52 offenses without one single punishment. For anyone here who picks up that act, Act number 31, which was signed into law in July 2007, you observe that so many offenses, you think is just a perfect act of parliament, a perfect law. But in implementation, there's already frustration. So talking about implementation, there's a huge challenge in some of the seeming acts which public servants operate. Having operated that act for some time, being the chief driver, I've observed that ab initio, that act is meant to fail. It's meant to fail in the sense that those who made it deliberately stripped it of the punishment section of it. What do you now get as a public servant? You have to think out of the box. You have to use different methodologies, including naming and shaming. You have to keep engaging. For instance, the act requires all MDAs, all government-owned enterprises, to remit certain percentage of their earnings to the consolidated revenue funds of the federal government. But it did not prescribe any punishment for failure. What do you get? Most chief executives of some of these government-owned enterprises would deliberately subsume what ordinarily clear profits which they should give to the CRF, Consolidated Revenue Funds of the government, knowing that they have experts, accountants, lawyers who will tell them, Chairman, MD, do this, nothing will happen. There's no punishment. That is part of the administrative aspect of it. We've been pushing through naming and shaming. We've been engaging the National Assembly, the two chambers, to see how they can support us, continue to drive our mandate. And indeed, we are pushing on. For instance, we've moved the independent revenue of federal government from what it used to be, 100 and something billion, 200 and something billion. For the first time in 2021, we're able to hit a trillion mark. That was because of our partnership with the National Assembly, both the green and the red chambers. We had to go to them. We had an instance where an agency of government refused to remit about 23 billion. We kept exchanging letters back and forth, very rich and powerful agency. At a point, their CEO had to even engage. He was mocking me, said, "You're just wasting your time." We had to go to the National Assembly. National Assembly had to summon them. Eventually, back and forth, they now resolved and they were able to remit about 21 billion in arrears. I can tell you that there are so many other agencies like that you meet a lot of frustrations because even the Principal Act does not give you the enablement. Then administratively too, sometimes you begin to feel the government that set up that asks for this law to be made. Are you really sure they want the law to be implemented? That question sometimes, as a patriotic Nigerian, comes to my mind. So going about it is not like a tea party. It requires you to have some element of activism, some element of that courage and patriotism for you to get to certain elements of pushing some national objective, ensuring that government get the funds into the CROF. So it's a big challenge, but we don't have to give up. We have to keep pushing because the worst thing that can happen to any society is when you give up. There won't be hope again. I thank God that the new administration is relying on hope renewed. That's the mantra. We should renew our hope.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I think we now maybe comments for the next 10 minutes or thereabout, comments, questions for any of the panelists before I try to sum up. Okay, sir, I think I will go with Oga. Can anybody help us with the microphone? I don't know if there's any. Yeah, okay, my friend.
Thank you. My name is Godfrey Edoziem, retired federal officer, civil service. I have a concern for our country. And this is a comment I want to make by way of question. And I would like to have an answer. Government everywhere in the world is divided into 3 tiers: the legislature, the executive, and judiciary. And all the people that constitute the government at any point in time, they don't come from the moon. They're not from the moon. They are all part of us as the followership, taken from us to constitute the government. But when they get there, they become so insensitive. We on this side are saying, why are you doing this to us? Take the legislature. I wonder and imagine when we are talking about service to the common, to distribute money that was borrowed to share to them. And here the legislator is talking about 70 billion also to be shared to them for furniture, as if they were sitting on the ground to do their work. I don't understand. You take the judiciary, they are not fair. They are bots, they allow themselves to be bots. And we all know this in this country. You take the executive, somebody like our president today. I listened to him very clearly. He was very clear on where he wanted to go, telling us that he's going to be guided by the rule of law. And today, so many things are happening, even within the two months alone. We all saw what happened yesterday. 24 hours and nobody is saying anything. It's shame of show of what is going on in our country. My question is this, please, to the panelists. Is there anything that happens to us as a country when we leave being a follower to get into the leadership and something there is happening to us that we become so insensitive that we don't remember where we are coming from? That's my question. Thank you.
Small comment questions to Honorable Ayub. Then I get back to you, sir, after you.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Abdul.
My name is Abdul. Well, anyway, thank you very much, and I greet everybody. When Justice Archibald presented his book in Lagos, what I there, and that day I spoke about my experience at the National Assembly. I was in the 5th Assembly from 2003 to 2007. And I have reflected over, I have read the book, I have reflected over everything. It all boils down to the weakness of institutions. I was a member of the Judiciary Committee and police, army, and also media, public affairs, information. And I looked at, when we started, many people don't realize the National Assembly has been the weakest link in the chain. In 2003, we didn't even have offices. After the hearing, after the plenary, we just move around the entrance. Some people will still do the banks, come out, enter their cars, and off to their homes. So there were no offices. We had a few staff. They had, in National Assembly work is a very serious business. You have to have researchers, you have to have consultants, you have to have information to work with. And I'm happy that the Director of Financial Intelligence Agency has just mentioned it. If we work on these institutions, they will take a life of their own. Same thing with the judiciary. I remember there was a time we were looking at the budget of the judiciary. They were returning money after every budget year. So we asked the Chief Justice, Wolfe, I think, Obala Ipunala was the chairman of the judiciary. And he asked them, well, they are afraid of spending this money, but they don't know what to spend it on. So we not ask about the infrastructure. Why don't you spend it on infrastructure? Why don't you buy more books? Why don't you do they don't people have enough cars, vehicles to move around? And the judges were afraid of doing anything that will attract the eye of General Obasanjo. They were afraid. So we had to even increase the budget, and got the judges to have a meeting with us, looked at some of their challenges, including those buildings we've seen now, Nigeria Judicial Institute, Nigeria. It was at that time we started working on them. And then, of course, you remember the Freedom of Information Act that we passed. The first time it was passed, Obasanjo didn't sign it. The second time, he didn't sign it. It was the third time, 2011, that President Jonathan signed it. And of course, Sam, remember when we started working on it in the civil society. So as we continue to work on these institutions, they will be more effective. That is where I see it. There are corrupt judges. There are also big lawyers who are used by big politicians for money laundering. They pay a lot of fees to these lawyers, and then from that fee, they keep the money for the politicians. And then we also know judges who only ask for bribe. Yeah, like she just mentioned. Recently, I was in my house. I used to have one house in Barimba. When I was living in Abuja for Benin, I sold it because I got one woman who rented it. She used it for nurseries for 3 years. The first check she gave me, £10. Yeah, my wife brought the woman from the church. So then, for those 3 years, we were in court. The day I got judgment, I got somebody to remove the kids and everything. So she was able to move out. But since I was moving to Benin to be commissioner, I sold it. A few days, not about 2 weeks ago, I was summoned by a magistrate court who said that they have been trying to serve me that I was occupying the property illegally, that it belongs to somebody else in this Abuja. So your property can be stolen in Abuja. And the judges are part of it. They said they tried to serve me, I was not available. So they gave another. So when I now appeared in court, and I got a letter from Cytec that sold the property to me, the guys who filed the actions disappeared. So I had to report to the police. So the police now went to the house and evicted the people they brought there to physically take over the property. This is happening all over. And the top civil servants in the Federal Capital Development Authority, or FC, I don't know what you call it. They own most of the properties, the land that are being sold and resold in this Abuja. So corruption is so deep seated in our society that the judiciary alone cannot solve the problem. But somebody has to bring facts before a judge. And you have to file those documents properly before the judge can listen to you. You have to follow the rule. If you don't follow the rule, you will lose the case. In the last 3 or 4 days, almost all the big companies, and sorry, I keep using the word big, they have been winning their cases. AFC have been losing. I read one this morning, Lamido and his son have been acquitted. The other day it was former governor of Rochas. He also got.
Everybody be acquitted finally.
So it's happening. Some of these judges, some of the lawyers are not competent or they don't file them properly. And then those in EFCC, I also not well trained to prosecute these cases, or they are compromised. Thank you. So the judiciary is scared for the sacred.
Thank you very much. So maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more. I think after him, I'll go there. What?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to
Let's be brief so that others can
add to this discourse. Yes. My name is Augustine Witili. I'm a professor of cardiovascular medicine. This discussion is interesting because I don't think that it's only the judiciary that is scared. I belong to 2 systems, that I feel has also been in trouble in this country. I belong to the educational system and also to the health system. I think one of the speakers here mentioned it. I think one of the main challenges is that there is broken trust in our country, and it's such a terrible thing. Many years ago, when the fuel crisis thing was on, it was the then Minister of Finance that made this statement. She used this word, that there is broken trust in our country. Nobody believes the other. And all of us are suffering it. I will just give you an example that is a bit different from the judiciary, but it tells you what everybody is suffering. It's when it comes to your own side, you discover how terrible. Like I said, I'm a professor, belong to the educational system. I'm also a doctor, belong to the health industry. This morning, NAD has just started a strike action. People go on to talk about what happens in our universities. And sometimes I sit down and I'm ashamed of myself as being a representative of such stories that go on. But again, because it's a system where I am part of, I know that half, if not more than some of those perceptions may not be the correct thing. Again, why is it so? It's a broken trust. I just want to proffer a solution. I think that the more we build systems or institutions, I want to thank my brother that talked about building institutions The more we build the institutions and the more we are transparent with these institutions, the better for all of us. A short example, all of us here, if I start asking you about what your perception about JAMB admissions or admissions in Nigerian universities, everybody will have all manner of stories to give. So in one way, even the educational system is also scared, isn't it? But I've asked this question. When we all went, I remember the first day I went to University of Nigeria as a student. I went to the board and saw my name, saw my score. There were other young people standing on that board. And we all saw our names, saw us. So some were crying. And we were saying, oh, sorry, that means you are going to write this exam next year. I mean, nobody told us anything. Why have we forgotten that system? I've been asking this, even as a vice chancellor, why have we shrouded everything in mysteries? Now, everybody thinks that he's the best, you know, because maybe you scored in your JAMB, you scored 240 or 260. You are the highest in your church, and then you think that you are the best. Not knowing that some other people probably scored about 300, 320, and all that. And all of us are suffering the same thing. Please pity the vice chancellors when it comes to admission. It's complete mess. The system is scared. So it's not only the judiciary, all of us in one way or the other are all suffering. And the solution to this is if we can, one, strengthen our institutions, and two, increase transparency in our institutions. Thank you very much.
Scarred and scared. The institutions are scarred and scared. Okay, so we'll take and then I think I will just take two more, or after this, two more, and two ladies actually, so unfortunately, because they were mostly men. Let me take the last person. The person, I'll come to you, sir. I'll say two ladies first. We'll continue. Somebody is.
Well, I want to thank you for.
Don't confuse INEC chairman or who has already confused himself. Don't add to my self-confusion this morning.
I want to thank you for the privilege to make a comment. My name is Josiah Daniel Igune. I'm a legal practitioner. In a way, I was very reluctant to speak, but my friend insisted I must speak because virtually what most of the speakers have addressed now, I granted an interview on them last night. So to be like almost divulging what I've already said. But the basic thing, as far as I'm concerned, was what the last speaker, the vice chancellor, said. That is, there's no allegation that we threw at the judiciary that one way or the other, we are not all culpable of, be it negligence, incompetence, or corruption. Because why we don't excuse a few who bring bad name to the judiciary, you can't take away the fact that what gets most of the judges into trouble is the role played by members of the public. So if we can work on ourselves, one way or the other, most of these problems will be reduced. And one of the points I also emphasized then, which I also want to emphasize now, is the issue of training. Because one of the questions I addressed was that the quality of training had gone down. Then my first answer to the interview was, one, you can't talk about the quality of the trainees without talking about the quality of the trainers. Who are those people training the people that are practicing in the various systems today? What's the level of their standard? What's the level of their competence? What's the level of their quality? And then I cited an example. For example, when we're in the University of Nigeria, for instance, the lecturers we had the best lecturers, they devoted all their time to teaching. All the professors I know that taught us law, they were not distracted. They were focused, they were disciplined, they were not scrambling for any other business, any other person. They gave all their time to teach, mentoring us. And many of us grew up wanting to be like them. The same thing when we came to be trained by those in practice. But what we have today. So one way or the other, like the Vice Chancellor said, we have to go back to the olden standards. In fact, I suggested that, especially in the legal system, if you have a calling to be a teacher, please, I beg you, remain a teacher and mentor the students. If you have a calling to be a judge, remain a judge and do justice. If you have a calling to be an advocate, remain an advocate, so that this will help avoid distractions. Once we have less distractions as professionals, it will also help reduce some of these pressures that leads to corruption one way or the other.
Thank you very much. Okay. So where are the ladies? I want to take two ladies before I move, if I will move forward. I thought there's a lady down there. Okay, the student actually. The young, let me start with the young, because I think you guys have wasted or spent your time. So those young ones, see, just started. So let's hear them. Whether we have hope. Go ahead.
Good day, everyone. My name is Anigwe Hosanna, and my question goes to Ms. Ayobe. From all that I've heard with all the insecurity and the pressure on the judiciary, what are my hopes of becoming an expert? I said, from all that I've heard, what are my hopes of becoming a lawyer?
Thank you very much. So our keynote speaker has succeeded in scaring her, and she's wondering whether she should actually continue with her dream. Okay, let's take another lady before we see if we have time for the male. If there's a lady, if there's none, there's a lady there, please. Let's take two ladies first. We've been taking men. Okay, I think there's a lady. So after that, you can take another man.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm happy for being here and having the opportunity to speak out. I think the problem in Nigeria is a system collapse. That's the way I want to put it. There is a system collapse. Starting from the schools where the people are built till we become lawyers and judges and all what we are today, there is a system collapse. From the primary school, the teachers cannot, they don't have, they're scared. They cannot correct the pupils from that level. As I'm standing here now, I have a threat on my phone from a student for scoring a C in project. It's as bad as that. So whether that person will graduate to be a lawyer or be anything, there's a system collapse. In fact, it's very scary. In the civil service, it's scary everywhere. Please, which way do we go? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think I'll take two last ones. Use a discussion.
Thank you very much. My name is Adeboboye Adekunle. I'm a legal practitioner. Look, some of the things we've been talking about today regarding strengthening our institutions. Now, we have a number of academics here, and one of the theory of institutionalism is that the people who occupy some of these institutions are product of the society. And we need to not talk about strengthening the institution, we need to talk about the values of society. And secondly, the judiciary are constitutionally mandated to interpret the law. And we focus so much on the judiciary, leaving out the lawmaking itself. One of the problems we have in Nigeria is that a lot of Nigerians, even the elites, are laid back into monitoring the process of lawmaking in Nigeria. Now, we'll be removing a lot of burden on the judiciary if we begin to interrogate and spend more time in monitoring the people who make our law. You see, the principles of rule of law dictates that the binding principles of the binding rules of law are made by the legislature. So Nigerians generally, we need to start focusing more on the lawmaking procedures and processes by the legislature, so that we can reduce the burdens of the court having to spend time in interpreting hand or some of the which could have been better corrected in the process of lawmaking.
Thank you very much. The technical solution. Go from Mora to the final comments before I get back to
my name is Mwash.
Was there another lady? Where? Okay, go ahead. Go back to the back.
My name is Mwansha MJ. I belong to the suburban. Biaji across. After Kuje, Nyanya, outside Pape across and all that. What am I saying? Our bourgeoisies, our lawmakers, our judges, professors, we have been speaking and been talking about marginalization, this and that. You will see a situation whereby the Abuja town was designed for the bourgeoisies. And when the poor comes in, anytime they get their breathing space, there will be FCDA new plan to shift them to maybe Lugwe inside. And when they develop, they shift them again. The across, they will develop it and send them inside and inside. Who is protecting these less privileged groups? Buhari signed a bill not too young to rule. What did he tell the youth? Wait until I leave the office. Where is the rule? Where is that bill? In the National Assembly, sorry to use that abusive words, we see that the people will get there mainly are thugs. And how do you expect thugs to lead you? Many of them are lower class in their brain. Sorry to use that word. What do? They go in there and pass a bill. 40,000 for this one, 70 billion for that other one. So you have gone there to relieve yourself. You don't have cars. Every year, they will change the National Assembly painting. And what is happening in our roads? They are like that.
Thank you very much.
Please, our leaders should relax and allow the young, the youth, to take over this power. Look at the ministerial nominee, all retired and questioned by, let me not say, even EFCC. Who is even monitoring them? If you see what is going on the ground, believe you me, everywhere. That is why our value system, once you can make money and move with cars, you are the ruling class. That is why our youth cannot read any longer. They don't read any longer. If there is any way of using phone to get whatever you want and kill and do anything, it's allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Finally, our sister, before I get to Prof. to wrap it up.
Good day, everyone. My name is Eukaria Izani. I'm a retired civil servant. I'm also a lawyer by training. I just hope I won't get out of this hall more demoralized. You know, my sister has said something. She said it's a complete system collapse. My simple question would have been, who will bail the cats? I was listening to our director. I didn't get the designation quite well. You know, saying that that act has been there for years. My question is, can't it be amended? What does it take? There are also those National Assembly people who have oversight functions who will usually come. When? For how long will it be like that? When will it be amended to include those penalties? Because these monies that are not remitted, they will usually end up in private pockets and will continue to be poor and poor and poor. The country is in a terrible mess. So my simple question is, when will we begin? Since 1960, and who will bail the cats? Thank you.
Pointed question. Where do we begin? Who will bail the cat? And finally, our daddy, Professor. Professor. We are blessed to have two former ministers of education here. But no, health, sorry, and education. So the two components of human capital were represented. Thank you, sir.
Do I have your kind permission to sit?
Sorry?
Oh, your kind permission to sit.
Sir, I can even come and carry you. You deserve it. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I'm happy to see people very angry. Very angry with this situation. I was happy to hear you, Mr. Vice Chancellor. You know, a society is respected by what it honors and what it believes in. So I want to thank those who have kept the memory of Major Sam Momah. Incidentally, he's my doctor. See, that's why I can't stand. My doctor is Emeka Momah, Dr. Emeka Momah. What I want to say is simple. The way to begin is to begin to look backwards. Vice Chancellor, you said you went and looked at the board, your name was there, your score was there. We conducted the examinations for the universities when I was teaching there. I was a professor in 1981. And we did the examinations ourselves and marked them. And then we took people who were there. Second point, the best students were retained in the department and sent out as junior fellows and trained. It was unheard of that you were a lecturer or a professor without having a doctorate degree from a very good university. And actually, on procession days, what was known was the way we appeared in our different academic gowns. I was always happy wearing my Imperial College set. There were Harvard, there were Cambridge, was Oxford. It's not that we cannot train our own people here. I know that having got my doctorate and DIC from Imperial College of the University of London exposed me to the best in the world. Students, I'm not talking of teachers. And so when you see those people in the tunnel trying to build aircraft, you knew you were not inferior, especially when you passed them in class. A recent Harvard survey showed that Nigerians made up most of their foreign students. So the way to begin is simple. As Dr. Pius Okibo, we have to go backward. This Nigeria way forward, it is Nigeria way backward. We look forward, we look backward, and the way to go is backward. We are in Achebe no longer at ease. Obi Okonkwo was sponsored by Umuofia Improvement Union. For those who read it, because he was the best student in the local government. Not that his father was anything. and that is the workers, PWD workers, paid their dues to send Okonkwo to England. And of course, Okonkwo committed the mortal sin. He was sent to study law. And instead of studying law to help the community in land cases, he went and studied something they call English language. That's Achebe for you. Achebe, who had a scholarship for medicine from Momah and ended up studying English. But of course, you cannot mention Nigeria without mentioning. That was, yes, sir. Everything that I'm saying in Nigeria, who could think of Justice Chukwudifo Okuta? Who just passed on? In Onitsha, nearest where I was, you were given a seat in front, not the trader with siren, because you were the mother of a lawyer. Those who are from around there know that there's a piece of cloth worn by women called the Jacob lawyer. What is the new system now? Let me not call names, because I come from a town where it is Rolls Royce that is the answer. And how many of us? Incidentally, some Momah comes from the same town. So what I'm ending at is, there's no way forward. The way we are going, we will crash. There is the way backward. Politicians, if you want to go forward, look at the politicians before. For me, it was M.I. Obara. For those, it was Obafemi Awolowo or Sardauna. Did you hear ever of Sardauna being addressed as sub-national? There's no such nonsense in my thinking that you could call Obara sub-national, or call Awolowo sub-national by Tafawa Balewa, or call, we have a federation, we have a federal government, central government, and federating units of states. Local governments don't come anything near it. So when you have a mistake as to who you are, then other mistakes come, and then systems collapse. Follow. Then the way forward is the way back.
Thank you.
To look backward.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I think to begin to round up, I will ask the panelists just 1 minute, 2 minutes comment. I think you ask some question, third question that I can address, but anybody can try to say what to say. Let me start with. Okay, I also start from Honorable. Honorable has a question, I guess.
Yes, there's a specific question concerning the act. Well, to take it from where Professor ABC, one of our leaders, said, I want to associate with some of his submissions. We should look inside, we should introspect, because we're really at a crossroad. Specifically about the act, we've made efforts in the 7th Assembly to amend that act. Then I was the head of Secretariat. I know the efforts. As a lawyer, we pushed through in the 7th Assembly. It got to committee stage to amend the act. Almost 90% of members of the parliament, both red and green chambers, agree that that act is a life wire of our public finance management. That's the fulcrum. Apart from the Constitution, the Fiscal Responsibility Act is fundamental to our fiscal discipline, fiscal responsibility, and accountability. That's the foundation of the MTEP, medium-term expenditure. and fiscal sustainability plan. Everybody will agree with you. You push it, who will bear the cut? That effort died at the 7th assembly, at the committee stage. At the 8th assembly, by then I've become the secretary of the commission. We pushed, got to the same committee stage. For no reason, obviously the same reason, it couldn't scale through. I drove the last effort as the chairman of the commission. I mean, in the immediate past, until the few days in June, I was crying, running around to see how to get that act. There was no place I didn't go. And everybody will agree this act is very important. If you check, everybody cites Fiscal Responsibility Act when you're talking about everything about fund in this country. But you will find, ironically, that nobody is interested in seeing how to get it work. So what am I saying? We got to the committee stage. There was even a report just laid before the parliament, and it's gone. It's still there. I ran around. So who will bear the cut? I think every society gets what they want. While I say it that the judiciary should continue to be sacred, I also say without any fear of contradiction that the blame should not only be on the legislature. The blame should be on all of us. When you talk about legislators and corruption and what they are doing, I don't seem to agree. I think it's about all of us, from the VC, from the lecturers. I'm a practical person. I have experience. I come from a university community. I'm from here, where Futo is there. I meet professors, I challenge lecturers, go to institutions and see how bad. You ask, where are the funds given to them? It's about all of us.
Thank you.
It's about the civil servants. It's about all of us, not just the judiciary, not just the legislators. Every society gets what they want.
Thank you very much. Our sister from National Human Rights Commission, a quick closing remark.
Okay, I want to align myself with the previous panelist and the several interventions we've gotten from the audience. It is not just the justice system that is scared, that is challenged, and that needs reform. All other sectors in Nigeria needs reform. Nigerians generally, we need reorientation. What are our values? Where are we now? Where are we coming from? Where do we intend to be? And for us to continue to exist as a nation, I think possibly there is need for us to hold a conference, a national conference, to dialogue and discuss what are the way forward.
Thank you. Professor.
Thanks so much. Is to reiterate what I said not much earlier, that for the judiciary to help improve the investment climate in Nigeria, it's important that justice is not only served, but it's also seen to be served. And what that means is that judges must remain above board. So the temple of justice must be sacred. And in order to help the independence of the judiciary, there is need to look into the remuneration of judicial office holders. I say this because I was recently engaged by the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission as a consultant to advise on the review of the remuneration of political, public, and judicial office holders. And I made a strong case for the judiciary, particularly with respect to certain allowances they are, asking for. They are talking about something like an unusual lifestyle allowance, which I agree. Judges are, their social life is, affected. So I think the remuneration of the judicial office holders, has to be looked into in order to enhance their independence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, to the panel, keynote speaker and now panelist.
Thank you. I'm sure I didn't hear Sam say double trouble or anything like It's a very peaceful person. I want to say to the young lady who asked about what her chances of becoming, you should continue to dream, and it's an achievable dream. The great thing about some dreams is that they are very achievable. What's important, of course, is that you have to take yourself seriously. There's a tendency to expect when women stand up to talk that they will hedge with, and what I'm trying to say is, I just want them to, and a bit of simpering and no, take yourself seriously, learn to, and as you did actually, spoke out very well, and the capacity to stand up and speak in public is already a big part of what being a lawyer is. Words are our trade, and the rest of it is acting and posturing. You have every hope of being a lawyer, and if I'm still around at that time, I hope to welcome you to the profession. I was when my colleagues were speaking, and particularly Prof was saying that you need the rule of law for development, and I thought about what they have in China. I didn't know. The sad reality is that, and this also goes to Prof, that the reason why we can't step into the same stream is because the river has really moved on. The size of our population compared to even when I was young, it's more than double. So systems that were devised for 20 people are now having to deal with 200 people. I don't even want to go on about it because it's just that is real, where the real pressure is coming from. We decided to be careless about the issue of population control, treated it as a joke. At the same time, we refuse to provide for the increased population. We just say, we are the biggest country. Yes, we are the biggest, but big for what? So that's really a problem. As to system collapse, when the war broke out in Syria, I said, that's how I can just imagine myself. One day I'll be sipping cappuccino in a cafe in Lagos. The next minute I'll be on a boat, struggling to get across the Mediterranean. That's system collapse. I look at Sudan. We saw what happened, I think, in the capital city, Khartoum. They were okay with the ravages going on in Darfur. It wasn't affecting the capital. But then it affected the capital. And of course, because they didn't attend to what was happening in Darfur, the whatever they call themselves now, former Janjaweed, that suddenly became the RSN, is fighting with the army. We can see it now. We saw just the other day, I think it was even in today's papers or yesterday's, a Niger Delta militant, full army, see it. I don't know if but that's when the system will collapse, my dear. We haven't collapsed yet. I'm going to get into my plane. I'm going to fly to Lagos. I'm going to reach Lagos. I'm going to get to my house. And it's all going to be very, very orderly. And the system that is going to do that for me has not collapsed. It's when I am struggling to get on to the last Mami wagon, leaving, that's when we will know that the system has collapsed. But I think we don't have to wait for it to get to that stage. That's the issue.
Thank you very much. Well, I think, they say when the fat lady comes, it's over. So now I've stood up just to round up. I think there are certain tensions that have been dominating our discussion. Half full, half empty. Ayo has constantly taken the view that things might be not working well, but they're working well enough. So until the boat takes you off the coast, the system has not collapsed. Many of us will think maybe the system has collapsed. System collapse has partial collapse, partial collapse, that if you don't attend to, it leads to total collapse. Again, I think it's an American hydrogeologist, Jared Diamond, famous for many books, who said, one of his books talked about how societies collapse. And said that collapse usually imperceptible. to those who are not paying attention. Gradual slippery, and before you know it, societies collapse. If you look at every history of great, whether it's Germany with Hitler, the signs are always there. People have to react how they want to react. But I agree that it's not the judiciary's issue. The other issue is public trust. Afrobarometer says 72% of Nigerians don't trust the judiciary. This is not a Nigerian political party survey. And what that simply means is that if you ask a simple question, if somebody offends you, would you like to go to court? Do you trust that the court will give justice? Say no. That's a measure of lack of public trust. The only group that extended was INEC, 74, interestingly. That was before the 23 election. That is a 23 report conducted before the election. INEC was 74% of Nigerians don't trust the INEC. I think now it would be 90% of it. The last action was totally reckless, irresponsible, and lacked integrity. Again, I like to offer explanation. I believe in explanation, power of explanation. And yes, simplicity is naive, but simplification is the work of genius. You have to try to simplify the problem. And I'm looking at incentive as the real problem. Somebody say, who paid the card? What's the problem? How do we get out of it? It's all about incentive. University education, people started writing about university education collapse from the military. When military head of states appoint whoever they like, send a name to you to put in the university, somebody who probably didn't pass. And that's why you have to connect meritocracy to the revival of Nigeria's ethical, institutional process. People talk about China. People talk that about China all the time. China has no rule of law. Yes, they may not have what we call democracy election, but China is a rule of law state. The secretary of the Communist Party of China would not give anybody a list to go and let somebody. We heard that Buhari's nephew, who was the villa, is now the senior officer of which is in London. It can't happen in China. People pass through process and they get into systems. How many Chinese presidents have looted their country the way I've done? So the reason why we are failing is that we have put incentives that encourage misbehavior. It's very simple. Lack of equity. So the question then is, how do we solve our problem? Solve your problem with the most present crisis. That's how to solve the problem. And then you create a domino effect. You recreate the incentive structure. The truth, I'm a lawyer, and I'm sad that the president always, I was telling him when I was leaving, so why do you always walk away with a conference when the time for discourse comes? In Lagos, I was a keynote speaker at Speeder in Lagos. It was supposed to be the runaway. MBA has failed to do what Sapara Williams said. He said the lawyer lives for the direction of society. You have to, for example, we saw TTSS. This is not the first time. They did it with Shaware, they did it with several persons. How can't the MPA issue strong position? They meet the president and demand some fundamental change the way these institutions behave recklessly. Finally, on this point, the real crisis of Nigeria today, and the most fundamental, I asked how you made that question. I say, yes, you said there's no saint, no sinner. You're right. But every era has the most existential challenge to deal with. For me, it is the perversity of impunity. The fact that people cannot be held responsible for what they do. People who have the capacity, not just people in power, people who are rich, people who have star power, celebrities. Everybody can opt out of the justice system, meaning you can commit an act and never get to pay for it. That is it. No culture in the world, no society in the world has made progress without that fundamental rule of law situation. You don't have a democracy, you may have laws that are preventive, but you must be able to be a society where it is difficult to commit to do something and not face the consequence. Today, I've said it before, I say it again, Nigeria has epidemic of fake certificate, forgery, and fakery everywhere. In the university where I teach, I know some professors who have been found who didn't have WAEC, didn't have BSc, are full-fledged professor. Prof, am I lying? And the system allowed them. And instead of throwing them out, somebody will say, but they have spent 13 years. They have published 20 papers. Anywhere in the world, if today Harvard discovered that I didn't pass my WAEC, they will recall all my certificates. There's something like Sam has done great work for the nation. Nothing like Sam has been a philanthropist. Today, can the tribunal be bold to exclude anybody who was not qualified to run the election? If you're a country, don't deceive yourself, you can speak grammar. A country where prerogative trumps justice, whether religious people, you see people kill people, they know for religion, and they go free. You see the rich kill anybody and they pay it off. You will see politicians do whatever they like and they pay. So when we talk about justice, why people don't care about justice and why we are scaring the judiciary, it's not like every judge is corrupt. That's not true. I was a keynote speaker when the judges of the Supreme Court, sorry, I'm hand off now, Supreme Court was there. He told me when I finished, he said, Sam, we know that you have been attacking us, but we are not all corrupt. I say, my Lord, I know. So finally, let me say it. Those who criticize justice system and the country are not less patriotic than those who support the status quo and don't criticize. Don't make this impression that when people are criticizing their country, they are outcasts who want their country to be real. They may actually be the more patriotic Nigerians. That's the last word I want to leave with everybody. We have limited perspective, but let's encourage criticism of the Supreme Court. I heard the MPA president say they're going to sanction lawyers who criticize the Supreme Court. I said, sanction me first. I was in the US in 2000 when the Supreme Court ruled in Al Gore versus Bush. My professor, Professor Lawrence Tribe, was the professor, and they came out and deplored, scattered the Supreme Court. Nobody issued them any threat because the Second Temple of Justice does not make it infallible. Thank you very much.
I'm in a bit of a quandary now. I'm confused. Is Dr. Sam Amadi a panelist or a moderator? Let's put our hands together for him for playing the double role. Double role, amazing. Can we have the panel photograph, please? Well, this event is two-pronged. We have the lecture, which actually dovetailed into the panel discussion. Quickly, we will be presenting the book. Dr. Wada is around to unveil and present the book. But before we do that, we need to review the book. Let me invite our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Wada.
It's a great privilege to be here this afternoon. And I want to stand on all the protocols that have been laid down because of time. Otherwise, I've seen enough VIPs here. Today is a day that we remember an officer and a gentleman. And while we were looking at our justice system, we were looking at the ills of society, my mind went somewhere and it went to him. This man left us a few years ago, 200 million of us. He would be interested. What are they on about now? How are they solving the problems I saw when I was in this world? Well, big problems of so many people cannot be solved overnight. We don't have a choice. 200 million of us, we do not have a choice but to say that the glass of Nigeria is half full. Half full because we cannot give up. Half full because the world, who looks a little bit skeptically about our race, is hoping that someday they will be able to say, these are good people. There is an officer and a gentleman who surely, we hope, the Africans led by the Nigerians, are straddling the earth with positive comments, with hope, not with despair. It is with these words that I invite you to the powerful book written by Toby Momah on his father. It's titled A General and a Gentleman. I, as a person, have benefited from a good man, a good general and gentleman. I'm a doctor, I'm a gynecologist. I'm involved in women affairs, in particular, those who cannot bring forth children to this world. I was lucky, fortunate. 1998, a child was born in Abuja here for the first time. The general was a minister, science and technology. And he used to say, technology is power. And he was hunting where at scientific discoveries by Black people. I want to project them to the world. It shouldn't be everything buy and come. He came to honor me in my desperate place in Gwagwalada. Please. All right. You can now see why I say hope. You see, he is a seed, a good seed, that even when he's not on this earth, people are gathering. I pray that we gather more and more every year. At this point, they say that behind every successful man, there is a woman. And we have a woman amongst us here, Mrs. Momah. I bow. God bless you for looking after the general and gentleman. God bless you for bringing up all the children who are influencing the world as we speak. I saw Tobe, and even though I hadn't really met him physically, I said, this is a Momah before I saw his surname. This is a carbon copy. And we were on a Zoom meeting and it worked well. So I'm honored and grateful to God that I'm alive today to present a book about someone that I love dearly, deep in my heart. Yes, I may not be Southeast. He is also not from the Southeast. He's a Nigerian. So I wish to present to you. I would be here till nighttime because of him, but unfortunately, I have people who have come from far and they've been waiting to see me in my office. So permit me to present to you this book. I've been given the option of telling you how many millions I want to present it with. It's all written here, but I'm not that kind of person who will call money. But I have it attached and I will surely pay my dues honorably and fondly to an officer and a gentleman. I think it's also in order that I go downstairs and call people to help me present the book. Not here, but I think down there, so we don't suffer too much. So please, those that I couldn't recognize or honor in protocol, they're on the front seat. I can see Dr. Momah, Toby Momah. I can see you all. Please, let's gather, take a photograph. I want each of you to carry a copy of the book as we honor a man. We cannot say he's ever living, but he's living. Ever living is only God. But keep the memory of this great man alive for as long as humanly possible. So I want to enjoin all of us to please take time to read this book. You know what will happen when you do that? Human beings or people alive will read about you when the Maker has called you home. It's what you've done, the good you've done to people, that comes back to you. Please. Please. So, and please buy this generously to support this great event today. And thank you very much, all. Please, as the book is being reviewed, we may be called upon to buy a copy for one amount or the other. Don't be tired. It is an investment in honoring this man's foundation so that on and on we remember the good man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wada. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so, we'll now invite Professor Odili. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the organizers, the chairman of the occasion, and many other dignitaries here present. Permit me to recognize Dr. Obia Ezekwesili, whom I had spoken with some time ago on phone. And I'm happy that we are together in this meeting. Thank you very much for honoring this invitation. I must also thank the matriarch of Momah family. Is the mother of all of us. You know me, or you have seen me today as Vice Chancellor of an institution. But it may interest you to know that I grew up as a young boy at Umudim Newi. I went to Kung Memorial Grammar School and stayed in Opunebu. I was born in Opunebu. And each time I went to the market, Nkwo Newi market, where my late mother sold rice, I passed through your house and will always look at the building. I remember it was moved just like the color of Dr. Ezekwesili's dress. That was the color over 30 years ago. As we trekked past through that, we were told that this is the house of a general. I lived with the Momah. I lived in the house of Momahs. When my father died, I stayed with one of the Momahs, that's the father of Mikmusi, and lived in that place for many years before I went to special science school in Onitsha, and then became a medical student where I met your son, Tobe. So on this note, I want to thank you very sincerely that this is not my first time of attending a program organized by Tobe. When Daddy did his 75-year anniversary, I was in this hall because when Tobe came back and told me about it, I was there with my wife. So it was a great pleasure for me when he told me again about this lecture series and the fact that I will review this book. I decided that I will not do it virtually, but I must come here to honor this man. Thank you very much. Again, before I just make a few notes, because I think the book has been reviewed through the discussions that went on. When I saw the title, I said I will start reviewing by mentioning my own side of the story. Again, I've talked about how I was seeing the house as a young boy growing up. When we just finished our medical school, and just like the crisis in Nigeria, I always tell young people that the crisis in Nigeria didn't start today. There was industrial action in practically all government hospitals all around the country. It was only the military hospital in Lagos that was functioning at that time. I remember that day, Tobe was standing somewhere and I saw him. I said, look, I want to do my house job in military hospital in Lagos. Is it possible for you to give me a link to your dad? And Tobe stood there and brought out a tiny piece of paper, 2 papers, and wrote one to the then Minister of Science and Technology, and another one to the PA of General Momah and told me to go to Abuja to Federal Secretariat. That was my first time of coming to Abuja. And as I climbed the Federal Secretariat, floor after floor, I met security men. And what Tobe told me was that I shouldn't bring out the letter for his dad, but I should always bring out the letter for his PA. And that advice was very helpful. So at every level, who do you want to see? I want to see the PA to Minister of Science and Technology. As I moved through that, I still remember it vividly, that experience. It was at the 9th floor. I hope I'm still right, of that building. So finally I arrived. My heart was racing. What is going to happen? Eventually I saw the PA. But interestingly, that day, I could see the title of this book because I didn't see the general, but the gentle general actually attended to me because I left that place with a letter that opened this way. Dr. Odili is my ward. He wants to do house job in military hospital. Kindly assist him. And one of the things that was so interesting with that letter was that it was written, I sat down in that place and within about 30 minutes or 1 hour, a letter came out from Minister of Science and Technology. I held that letter, my whole body was shivering, that for the first time in my life, I could handle a letter by an honorable minister of the Federal Republic. He didn't know whom I was, he didn't see me, he didn't know about my parents, he didn't know anything about me. And I'm very grateful that I'm standing here today as not just as a doctor, I'm a consultant cardiologist, I'm a professor of cardiovascular medicine, and today Vice Chancellor of Margaret Lawrence University. On that note, I want you to take a journey. In the next 10-15 minutes, I'll be through with this review. But if you look at the title, A General and a Gentleman, the last 20 years, when as an academic we want to review the title of a book, you want to see whether the title is concise enough. Did it reflect the sense about what the author has in mind? And I think the title reflected the core message of the book, because you would think that of all attributes a general should have, gentleness should not be one of them. I mean, in your thinking. And again, this general is not just a general. I think he's also a giant general. So you can put a giant general and a gentleman. So you wouldn't expect a giant to be gentle in the true sense of the word. But here you are, that you have a giant, a general, and yet a very gentle person. The title is original and concise. Again, you can also see that it was original. It was born out of experience with this great man. It's intriguing, arranging two attributes that are supposed to be contrast. What you don't expect in a general is seen in one individual. Again, if you look at the title, we'll move from the title to the author of the book. Who should be in the best position to explain if a general is gentle? Is it his family members? Could it be those he's working with? And I think of all the children, we've seen that not just one of them is a doctor. Many of them are doctors. But I think there must be something between him and Tobe that made Tobe to put down this book. And if you look at the experiences that are well x-rayed in this book, you can agree with me that the best author of this piece should be a doctor who has been trained to observe things. We were trained in the medical school that you start, looking at your patient right at the entrance, that the way your patient walks into the room can also give you diagnosis. No better person than a doctor who has also been trained as a family physician, understands what the attributes of a family is to an individual. Tobe is a son, obviously, when you look at the experiences. We've seen parents that will have children, and yet those children are not really sons. They may be biologically related, but they may not be true sons. But obviously, when you go through the chapters of this book, no one will tell you that Tobe is a son and he is the person most qualified to author this book. I just want to discuss briefly the main thesis, the main content of this book. If you go through from the first chapter to the last, it's a book that x-rayed the life of this great man after retirement. There was an earlier series that x-rayed his life from birth to the point when he became, of course, the Minister of Science and Technology and retired. But I think the concentration here, it's his life after his public office, his private life, and the entrepreneurship spirit that he, was seen with. Above all, I think this book x-rayed the relationship of a family. We are talking about the collapse system of the country. Sometimes we don't know where to start. The judiciary thinks that the judiciary is the place that should mend the problem. Sometimes I think that we academics are the most culprits. I don't know whether anybody here believes me. I think that we are the problems because everybody, whether it is a lawyer, a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, they are all products of our own institution, isn't it? I went to court for the first time in my life barely 2 years ago. So the implication is that I may end up in this life, in this country, without entering a courtroom. I pray I wouldn't have to. But every one of us here, I'm sure, entered the institution. But you look at it at another angle. Should it be those of us in the institution that should bear the brunt, or should it be the family? The people we have at the high institutions are products of family. And that's why I think this book is a very interesting thing, because a lot was devoted to Major General Momah as a family man. In fact, one of the places Tobe said in this book that Major Momah hates divorce. I think it's a very important thing that you should all look at because of his interest in a family unit as something that will help in building our nation. So I now ask the question, should it be the judiciary or the academic system or the family unit? The question is there for you to answer. But I think in this book, the attributes of Major General Momah as a family man, as a husband, and somebody who is interested in family, raising up people that today can organize such a wonderful event is very clearly stated. Of course, his interest in our country as a family is very clear, obviously stated in this book. It's obvious that General Momah is not just from Southeast Nigeria, that he's truly a Nigerian. I wish that all of us in this room would read this book and put up the attributes where we will first see ourselves first as Nigerians before any other thing else. It's also obvious the way this book was constructed that the supportive context of this book is very clear. Historical context, physical context, cultural context. We are very clearly stated. For you to understand any book, it's important to understand the context on which the book was developed. The author in writing this book was very clear when he creates the picture of how ethnicity has become a major challenge of what we have in this country, the problem we have in this country. And Major General Momah, in his life, x-rayed various ways through which an entrepreneur would go beyond ethnicity. And while providing the context of this, the author clearly puts names and the part of the country where they are from. This is very important, as we read the book. There must be some critique. You cannot, a professor cannot look at a work of art or a creative work without having a critique, something to criticize in the book. I have noted that some points which I'm going to pass across to the author, some punctuation, some, maybe not so much of grammar, but let me remind you that they are not complicated for you not to understand the book. There is no question of and, 36 states and, or in this place. So the judiciary should just be at peace that this book should be well understood by everybody, despite one or two punctuation errors. However, there is one that I will take the liberty of having grown up in Okunebu, Newi, to correct. In page 74, the place where the Major General Momah, the home church, Tobe wrote there, St. Steve's Anglican Church. Incidentally, I grew up in St. Stephen's Anglican Church. I was confirmed by late Bishop Uzodike in St. Stephen's Anglican Church. So as soon as I saw that, I said that I must correct it publicly. Again, in one of the places where he mentioned, he was talking about the village, I guess it was a typographical error. He said, Okunebu is, but to the best of my knowledge, it is Okuno Ebu, because that was where I was born. And I stayed around that place before I moved, down and went to school for my first primary school at St. Michael's Oliuru Primary School at Umudim Newi, and then Okong Memorial Grammar School before I went to St. Charles Special Science School, Onitsha. So on this note, I want to encourage you to look at this book. You must buy it, you must read it, and you must make sure that this book gets around the whole country. If we think that the challenge of our country is with a family, and we have seen a gentle giant general who has so much interest in building a strong family. If General Momah didn't build a strong family, which was well expressed in this book, probably this meeting will not be holding today. Maybe what would have been holding today may be court cases between the children in one court or the other. And again, we'll be putting the blame on the judiciary. Meanwhile, somebody who is supposed to do his work well did not do his work well. So I recommend this, that the attributes of a gentle general who laid a very solid foundation for a family, the kind of solution we need in our country, is here. I want to thank you very sincerely for this, and want to recommend this book for all libraries in this country. Well, I will take the liberty of doing this to say that some of these books will surely get to Okong Memorial Grammar School, Newi, as a way of telling them in those days that we walked past through that house where we were told that this is a house of a general. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Well, he's like the man that actually inspired him. In the academic world and medicine, he's also a general. Let's put our hands together for Professor Odili. Thank you very much. Thank you. A car, if you are the owner of this car, a Toyota car, KUJ 451AA, please, you've been blocking a guy in the last 1 hour. You can quickly go and repark a Toyota car, KUJ 451AA. While we're at that, let me invite now Dr. Tobe Momah, the author, to do the call up to action.
Thank you all so much for spending your morning and afternoon with us. While the speakers were speaking, I remember my dad's passion when he was alive, maybe 20 years before he passed on, during the era of President Ibrahim Babangida. He made a statement that I have never forgotten. And I think if you're in government, please pass this on to the government. He said, Nigeria does not need SAP. Nigeria needs CAP. SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, we don't need it. He said, what we need is Cultural Adjustment Program. And I think everybody who spoke here today echoes those sentiments. It's a value that has been lost in our society that we need to reignite from the youth up through the education, the judiciary, the health sector. So please, let's advocate for a CAP, a Cultural Adjustment Program. I wrote a book 20 years ago to celebrate my father's 60th birthday. And on that day, I made a statement that half of him was not told, quoting the story of Solomon in the book of 2 Chronicles. I did not realize that at that point, I had barely scratched the surface when I wrote the book, A General and a Gentleman. This book you hold in your hands, or you will hold in your hands, is the last 20 years of his life. I decided to talk about the general on his to-be 80th birthday. This was in July 2023, because I felt that many people had not embraced what it took to run a company and to make a family and to spur democratic ideals in a nation. When I was writing this book, I came across a little leaflet that my father wrote on that day, July 6th, 2003, when I wrote the first edition of this book. I saw it sometime maybe August last year, and I sent a note to my brothers and sisters, and I said, he wrote in that note, he says, Tobe has indeed done me proud by giving me this book. This was 20 years ago. He now said, a befitting funeral while I'm alive. That was just quintessential Sam Momah. He was a person I called passionate but pragmatic. He was a person who was euphoric but always had some euphemisms. He was emotional, but he was not a loose cannon. He was not a tactless optimist. He was a pragmatist to the core. And now I look back at this man who mentored me and mentored so many of you in this room, and I see why he was such a pragmatist. In the midst of so much retrogression and ill development, Sam had his fair share of difficulties. And this book is not just all the swan song and pies in the sky. This book talks about the difficult times. It talks about how he built Crystal Palace Hotel, Abuja and Enugu from the scratch. It talks about how he expanded those hotels. He could have taken the money and used it to retire and travel the globe and enjoy the luxuries of life. But instead, he wanted to employ Nigerians. He wanted to leave a legacy for the next generation. In his time over the last 20 years, Sam was busy. Sam was businesslike. And Sam, unfortunately, had to babysit some companies. He literally poured his retirement into those companies. The bottom line is that today, those companies are alive. Those companies are thriving. Those companies are legacies, not just for us, his children, but for our children who are his grandchildren. And for that, we cannot but say thank you for this legacy of sacrifice, for this legacy of ideology, for this legacy of problem solving. He not only built companies and built individuals, like I say in this book, Sam also encouraged democratic ideals. He wrote 12 different books in his last 20 years, books like Restructuring, books like Beyond Oil, books like Nigeria Beyond Divorce, all came out in his years of retirement. Think about it. How many people retire at the age of 50, 55 and start writing, start a company and build factories and farms? Very few in our climb. But Sam did not want to just have income streaming in and traveling. He wanted to be a member of society, a productive member of society. In this book, which is covered in 12 chapters, I talk about Sam the entrepreneur, Sam the soldier, Sam the statesman, Sam who was battling health challenges but healing others, Sam the strategist, Sam the father, Sam the grandfather, Sam the husband, Sam the patriarch of the Momah family, Sam and his foundation, and Sam in his own words. You know what? After writing this book, I can tell without a shadow of a doubt that my father's greatest wish was for equality and an egalitarian society where everyone had the same access to success that he had. He never failed to share the story of how his mother and father were too poor to sponsor him abroad. But through the dint of hard work, perseverance, and dedication, he rose to the pinnacle of his career. He could have left that retired, enjoy the rest of the time with his wife and travel the globe, but instead he poured all that into other people. That's what we're here to celebrate today. I talk in this book about Sam's mettle in management, acumen in authorship, compassion in Christianity, patriotism to a people called Nigeria. It is this man, Sam Momah, on his 80th birthday 3 weeks ago that we are here to celebrate. This book is a must book for any retiree. It will help you not just retire to gloom and doom and waiting for your pension every month. Sam's colleagues in the military were amazed at how he was so dexterous and establishing companies in his retirement. I dare anybody to do a study of retired military generals, and you can find less than 1% who achieved in their last 20 years what Sam Momah achieved. Last of all, I would like to thank my publisher, Spectrum Books. I'd like to thank my mom, sitting on the front row, Chief Christy Ifoma Momah. I'd like to thank my brothers, Emeka and Nkem. My sister is online, my sister Ada. I want to thank all of them, their wives, my wife, Rita, who is unavoidably absent, our children and our nephews and nieces who are here, Nonso and Chimele, all of them in the back. We want to thank them for supporting us on this journey. We want to thank Abby, my brother-in-law who was here, who had to leave, and his children as well. But most of all, we want to thank all of you for coming out. We want you to know that the Sam Momah Foundation has been busy in the last 1 year. In the last 1 year, we have opened reading rooms in the University of Nigeria Enugu campus. If you don't mind showing those pictures. We have opened the Sam Momah Library. This is the opening ceremony of the Sam Momah Library, Area 11, Garki. We opened this in 2022, I believe. Now, the next picture shows the reading room that we are going to open in the University of Nigeria. It's already open in the University of Nigeria Enugu campus. The good news is that we have gotten a 20 by 20 foot room at the University of Lagos. This is the University of Nigeria Enugu campus. The provost of the College of Medicine has given us a room, 20 foot by 20 foot, to build a Sam Momah reading room at the University of Lagos Medical Campus. And we're about to open that before the end of August this year. My father was very passionate about reading. He believed that readers are leaders. He wanted to spur a reading revolution. We cater to people who want to read at the Sam Momah Library here at the University of Nigeria and to be at the University of Lagos. We need your support. I'm going to put up a bank account on the screen. Every kobo, every naira that you support this purchase of a book goes towards the foundation. We are currently at 3 reading rooms, Lagos, Enugu, and Abuja. We want to expand this by this time next year to all the 6 geopolitical zones. Your support will be highly coveted. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out. And I want to thank the advisory board, ably led by our Dr. Obias Ekwesili and the other board members, for giving us guidance on this journey at Sam Momah Foundation. We are deeply, deeply grateful. And if you don't mind, the publishers of the book, Spectrum Books, want to say a word to the audience about the genesis and what this book, what spurred this book. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Femi, who is the operations manager of Spectrum Books, going to join us from Ibadan on the Zoom network. I hope he's there.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
And it's been such a wonderful time spending with all the speakers, especially the keynote speaker. Like you said, Dr. Tobe, the genesis of this book, this is the sequel, this is the second edition. And the first edition, like we live up until when life from, from 20 years after you retired. And it's been such an honor. I mean, the process of publishing this book.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Femi. So just want to let you know that Spectrum hope to take this book across the nation. And I think it's going to be a book for those of you who are planning your retirement. I would recommend you model it after Sam. Now, when Sam passed away, he left a will, and I'll just give you a snippet of the will. He said, "Don't work as hard as I did. It affected my health. Make sure you take time out to rest." So let's take that advice to heart as well. Thank you so much. God bless you.
You know, while Tobe was talking, it was my mother that I was looking at. And the pride I saw in her face is like the pride she had when Tobe came with his results sheet in primary one. Wonderful, wonderful. The pride was heavy. Let's put our hands for this amazing mother that has raised these beautiful children. Our time is fast spent. Some people have left us. So, Mrs. Ifoma Jude Iloma, maybe you just do 1 minute before our chairman will close for us, and then we'll be leaving.
I stand on the existing protocol. I greet you all with love. I am Mrs. Ifoma Jude Iloma, as has been introduced. I represent the Director General, Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute. And at the same time, I am here also as a great admirer of the late General Sam Momah. I said to myself, I will not live here without giving a good testimony of our beloved late General Momah. Already, there was a time the foundation wrote to my institute seeking for assistance. We picked about 10 of his books and we visited the library. But I had a personal encounter with late General Momah, apart from being my minister, because we are a parastatal under the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. That was years back when he was the minister of the ministry. I was going to Minister's Hill. And at the foot, there's a hill that leads up to that place. At the foot of that hill, it started drizzling. I was a very young girl then, and there was no vehicle. I didn't know what to do. I was dressed up for the occasion, and I saw a vehicle pulled by my side. I looked inside. I was afraid to enter. He didn't know me, but I recognized him because he was a public figure. And he said, "Young lady, where are you going to?" I said, "I'm going to Dr. Izogu's house." Dr. Izog then was the Minister of Health. And He said I should get into the car. I got into the car. To my greatest surprise, this man did not even ask me my name. He didn't ask me where I came from, even though I come from a town next to where I'm from, Ozobo. So he dropped me off at the place and went to his house. And I started thinking to myself, is this a Nigerian man? That tells you the kind of man we are celebrating today. Not only a giant, a quintessential gentleman, and a soldier, a disciplined soldier. Where the Federal Minister of Science and Technology is today, he took us to higher heights. I wish it could be maintained. While he was a minister, everybody knew about the ministry. He put us on the right footing. We were everywhere. And a simple man, unassuming, very humble man. And while I sat down there listening to the speeches of today, I didn't want to get downcast, because I know that Nigeria is not that very bad. We still have people. Look at my sister here, Dr. Obieze Wesley. When I saw her walking, I said, no, we still have them. You know, when you know her and know what she's capable of doing, you know that Nigeria has not lost it all. We still have a voice in the global world. So having said that, we will still take some of the books. I don't want to mention any amount. I will liaise with my Director General. We'll take about 5 books. We'll get back to the foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. While she was speaking, we just realized that the chairman of the Police Service Commission had a representative here all morning. In fact, she got here before everybody. I'm the only person who got here before her. And so it's amazing to have you, Mrs. Anuli Okoli. Can you deliver his message in 2 minutes? Okay. His representative, Mr. Solomon Arase, Chairman, Police Service Commission.
Good afternoon, everybody. May I follow may I stand on the already established protocol? Dr. Solomon Arase, the Chairman, Police Service Commission, ought to have been here, but he asked me to represent him. And I'll just read out what he gave to me. He's saying that he's pleased to be in your midst today for this auspicious occasion of the 3rd Sam Momah Annual Lecture Series. It gladdens his heart that the legacies of our respected Major General Sam Momah are not allowed to extinct with time, but rather being immortalized through annual lecture series. This is actually commendable, and I must eulogize the family for deploying huge resources to actualize this feat. Major General Sam Momah, retired, was an illustrious army jet engineer who during his time in the military distinguished himself as an academic of repute, an administrator per excellence, and an officer of valor. He was no doubt a man of character and conduct, whose humility and humanity remained the descriptive signature of his personality until his death. I must confess that there is no better way of eternalizing and entrenching the name of this great man of honor, his legacies, principles, belief, and illustriousness to our dear country, Nigeria, than instituting annual lecture series. On this note, I charge the family not to allow this noble act to die with the current generation of Sam Momahs, but also to ensure that it should be a family legacy that will be passed from one generation to another. This will not only serve as an infectious encouragement to the family members to always live and act right. It will continuously change them, challenge them to be not to betray the very trust of the good name of the family, as exemplified by the life and times of Sam Momah. This year's lecture themed Temples of Justice in Nigeria scared, or sacred cannot be timelier than now, considering the imperative role of the courts in the society as the last hope of the man, of a common man. There is no doubt that the judiciary in our contemporary times has come under serious criticism and for their orders and judgments, mostly on political matters. While the rightness or wrongness of these judgments may be relative depending on one's standpoint, it is important, however, that the judiciary in Nigeria is regularly interrogated in order to dispassionately match their performance with the expectations of the people and seek for ways of ensuring that justice is always justifiable and that the belief and hope of the common man in the system is not eroded. In conclusion, I sincerely felicitate with the family of Sam Momah and extend my prayers and goodwill messages now and always. I'm happy that the good works of Sam Momah do not go unchronicled. Thank you all and God bless. On that note, he has asked me to get two copies of the book for him for 100,000. For my own personal donation, I'm going to get a copy for my own library for the sum of 50,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our regards and love to the chairman of the Police Service Commission. I'd like to also, Dr. Uche Patricia, the DG National Board for Technology Acquisition Center, is represented here by Barrister M. Hassan, the Director Legal. We welcome you. Okay. You just want to say hello to them? Okay.
Good afternoon, all. Like the MC has said, my name is Ibrahim M. Hassan, Director of Legal Services, National Board for Technology Incubation, representing Dr. Patricia Uchenna Chukwu, who is the Director General Chief Executive Officer of that agency. And that agency is under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Incubation and Innovation, sorry. And the Director General, Mrs. Patricia Uche, has a written speech, but in view of the time constraint, I don't want to go into that speech, but I just want to inform the gathering this afternoon that the National Board for Technology Incubation, an agency under the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, is one of the brainchild of late General Sam Momah. And we have been collaborating with the foundation for a very long time now. And even during the lifetime of the General, we have always participated in most of the activities that he has organized. I remember I personally represented the then Director General in one of the books that he wrote that was launched at the International Conference Center. And so, please, if you will permit me, I will just want to read just some part of the speech, please. She said, at this juncture, this honorable gathering may be interested to note that the National Board for Technology Incubation, where I serve as the Director General and as a federal government agency under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which was conceived by General Momah, is charged with the mandate of implementing the technology incubation program in the country. The TIP is a national integrated support program provided by governments, academia, and the private sector with the intention of creating a natural knowledge-based budding entrepreneurs in the development of new technology-based firms, both startups and fledglings, as well as supporting the development of indigenous talents and industries. TIP is specifically designed as an institutional support mechanism aimed at developing the necessary infrastructure for the nurturing of technology-related activities and creating the enabling environment for effective linkages among technology providers, policymakers, and entrepreneurs. It serves as a veritable mechanism for the commercialization of research and development results that leads to industrial development of the country. I wish to humbly report here, in the spirit of ensuring the temple of justice for all Nigerians, that the MBTI has since its inception justified, anchored the technology incubation program, which started in 1993 as a foundation and subsequently established as a board in 2005, with the remarkable achievements recorded in the areas of wealth creation for the innovators, for the investors, and jobs for the myriad of unemployed in the society. So therefore, what I want to inform this gathering is that you could see the seed that was planted by the late General Momah. It has germinated and helped in developing this country as per the area of technology incubation and creation of wealth and employment in the country. So with that few comments, please, my Director General has asked me to take away 5 copies of the books and at a sum of 500,000 naira, which we will communicate. We have the account details, and by the time we go back, we will communicate to the foundation. Thank you very much, and God bless all of us. Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you very much. Our time is fast spent. We started off this morning with one chairman, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. And we are ending with the chairman that is on afternoon duty. And also, let me welcome here former Minister of Education, Madam Due Process, member of the board of Sam Momah Foundation, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili.
Thank you so very much. Gosh, I am sure that those of you who started very early at the beginning of this very important annual gathering to celebrate our very, very dear Uncle Sam have given your best of the day. So I want you to clap for yourselves, because it's one thing to come. It's an entirely different thing to stay true. And you are the ones who have started and finished, and we're so grateful to you. Auntie Ife, this year has come again, and it's gone well. So we're so grateful to God as a board that this has happened. We can see that this is a 3-part activity in that way that really makes it so meaningful. And so, starting with the keynote speaker, Ms. Ayobe, a legendary rights activist for our own country. Thank you, Ayo, for I missed your speech. It has been tough for my husband and I to balance our engagements today. He was here earlier, and I had to come to complete the process from another meeting. Thank you, Ayo. The conversation that's been heard, which then continued with the panelists, and that I benefited from listening to that very strong cast of minds talking about the temple of justice in Nigeria, sacred or sacred. Any one of us should know that one important element that determines the healthiness of society is everything about the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. Without it, it's hardly possible for you to have the kind of predictability of what society rewards and what it sanctions. Without that, we've often seen that countries make a big blunder of development. And so to focus on this at a time in our nation where our electoral process finally ends up on the table of the judiciary, it must be auspicious that this, I think I lack the word to describe the, some people would call it serendipity, but I don't think so. It is the fact that somehow God is with the foundation, and the topics that the foundation puts on the table annually often resonate by virtue of what's going on in the society. And so this conversation about the importance of our judiciary, the importance of justice, the fact that we need an incorruptible justice system, an architecture of justice that really is indeed a temple. Temples are never desecrated. When temples become desecrated, something is wrong. And so in all the conversation that then broadened it and said, the judiciary is very important and central to our lives. However, we need to examine the entirety of our lives as a society needs to get a handle on itself. And I saw when all the various speakers were talking about the issues of education, the issues of family, the issues of the Constitution. There are many elements that folded neatly together to bring to fore that this topic has only been done a tiny justice to, and that this conversation must continue. It must continue particularly because we have to evolve the level of our conversation away from the emotional considerations into a consistency of values and objectives that drive the position that we take on anything. So I just hope that all those who have been part of this conversation will continue to be voices for us getting to that place of common understanding of the importance of the institution of justice in our country. I want to celebrate Tobe and the siblings for the impressive part of the third part of this, the book launch. I mean, like, Tobe, that book is not just for retirees. I have been very interested in building a new cadre of leaders, public leaders for the continent. And so we have the School of Politics, Policy and Governance. And one of the areas of our curriculum that we want to boost is on the personal side of the leader. And so we will definitely be taking this book as one of our core books for the students of the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance. Because Uncle Sam, that book should have been titled The Intellectual, the Giant General, with credits to you, Professor Odili. And by the way, that was such an impressive book review. I mean, like, oh my God, you made it so, it came alive. So please, can we acknowledge Professor Odili for that impressive piece of work? I mean, that was so, it was really poetic. Thank you very much. And so you look at that book and you read it and you just find, like, when you're reading it, you're reading about an individual, you're reading about a father, a husband, you're reading about an officer, you're reading about a patriot, you're reading, and you're saying to yourself, as one who will be in public leadership, oh my God, I see the values. There's a consistent thread of core values that governed the personality of Uncle Sam. So we will make sure that this book will be a core reading material for the leaders we're raising, and not just in Nigeria, but in the rest of Africa, because the SPPG is being established in other African countries also. And to end on the note that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we should leave this place feeling dispirited. We should never leave this place feeling dispirited, Because you see, I am a pragmatic optimist, but I am an impatient optimist. Unlike some of my other, what would I call it? People who have been in public leadership in one form or the other, not just government. I actually feel impatient about my optimism because I kind of think that it is the pastime of those of us who are in the elite class on our continent to always think that there is enough time. We will get there someday. No, but it's no, we have to get there quickly. We have to get there quickly. We must buckle up. We owe it a duty to be faster in getting there. There are too many women, too many young people, too many children, too many pregnant women, too many orphans, too many people who are even dragging further behind. We can't keep failing. I give you a data that makes me wake up unhappy. 9 out of every 10 African children are not able to gain the minimum proficiency level in literacy and numeracy across our continent. In other words, if you lined up 10 African children across our continent, in today, 2023, 9 are not able to read a sentence or read a book by the age of 10, cannot perform some mathematical operations of that age by the age of 10 compared to their counterparts. And that research and data also tells us that because they don't have those skills, you know what happens? All the investments we do for secondary education, for tertiary education, amounts to a waste. So when you see them, we say, oh, the person came for an interview carrying master's degree certificates from university, but they couldn't even just speak good English. It's coming from there. The foundation is in crisis. So those kinds of things should make us be determined to push forward and to not be tolerant of any form of mediocrity, any kind of incompetence, lack of capacity, and an unethical mindset in public governance. What I therefore beg you to go with is a sense of passion, to continue to engage, to continue to demand, to continue to do of your best, to apply your best endeavor to everything that is important for the development of this society. My end game is that no matter how bad it gets, if we have just a number of us that are determined to not get tired, we definitely will make it. And those people showed up here as our speakers, as our panelists, as the audience. And so I celebrate all of you and I congratulate the Momah family once again for keeping the light of Uncle Sam blazing, and long may it blaze from generation to generation. I thank you all very much.
She delivers anytime, any day. You know, while she was talking, there was a way she called the name of Tope. It was as if I was listening to Nathaniel Bassey, Tope Chuku, for he has done it again. And so we have the certificates now to present. Dr. Tope Chuku, please, you might be close to me here to coordinate this. Yes.
Just to recognize our gratitude for the support, we would like to call up my mother, the chairperson of the Momah Foundation, to present these certificates to our keynote speaker, the book reviewer, and then to members of the panel who are still here.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Is Dr. Emeka in the room? So to quickly do a vote of thanks before we close. Dr. Emeka Momah.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for your time and patience. Our late father was a person of time punctuality, so we apologize for taking out any addition of your time. I would like us just for please, for those who can stand for a quick 15 seconds. In 3 days, the 29th, will be exactly 3 years since he passed away. So I'd like us just to honor him with a quick 15 seconds of remembrance of the father, General Sam Ifeanyi Momah, who on the 29th of 2020 went to be with the Lord. Let's just thank God for his life. Let us appreciate him for all he has done. We see his hands and all. Thank you so much. May you so continue to rest in peace. So it's my job to just appreciate everyone for the time spent. Thank you so much for making this this event an amazing success in spite of its spites. Many people had very different travel schedules, but they sort of altered their itinerary to be here, and we're extremely glad. The take home for this event is that honestly, you cannot have a nation that desires peace where there's no justice. No justice, no peace. So as we desire peace in any nation, please let's strive for justice. Point number 2 here is that if you want to be wealthy, raise men. What you're seeing here was not because my father is or was a wealthy man. He barely made it as a civil servant. He just robbed the pennies that we say and converted everything he had into meaningful use. And what you see here was just a man who raised men. He raised his children, gave them the sound education sacrificially, and denied himself many things. So please, wherever you are in your life right now, look at 1 or 2 people you can raise. Hold them by the hand. It's not about how much money you have in your bank account, but the men that when you're no longer here can speak on your behalf. So please, as a nation, let us choose to raise people on our side with the right intention. Finally, I'd like to appreciate my mom, who has so sacrificially been behind the scene, orchestrating all the affairs you see today. She diligently took it to herself to drive to most people's houses to invite them personally, and it's something that she does with so much passion. The last speaker, who was on the board of trustee and our closing chairman, was not actually planned to be here, but it just took this strong coercion of my mom to make it possible. So please, a round of applause for my darling mother, Matriarch, the one who makes everything happen by the grace of Almighty God. And please, a round of applause for yourself as well for making it here. We do not take it for granted at all. We appreciate your time. We do not take it lightly that you've chosen to be part of this occasion. It's the 3rd one, and I believe it's getting better. Is getting better. Please, by all means, we look forward to seeing you here again next year for the fourth event of the Sam Momah annual lecture series. We will, as a board, please entertain any topics. All right, we will at some point like the conversation to be generated from outside, not just within our group. So if you have any ideas, please meet any of us for points and suggestions of what topics you are looking for next year. Again, thank you so much for your time. Prof, thank you for that resounding. So we should give you a title, Neri. All right, so I didn't know that. Pleasant surprise, fantastic gentleman. We share patience alike. So again, please, thank you so much for your time, your patience, and do have a lovely day and a lovely week ahead. God bless you.